Brett Stevens in the Times talked about Cochrane. Put that on the screen. The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist who is the lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference, he told the journalist Mayan Demasi, full stop. But wait, hold on. What about the N95 masks as opposed to the lower quality surgical or cloth masks? Makes no difference. None of it, he said. Well, what about the studies that initially persuaded policymakers to impose mask mandates? They were convinced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular review?
Insert flame emojis around the man, the science himself, Anthony Fauci's face right now. How do you get past that? Oh, well, here's the thing. Trust me, I've got an answer. Let's hear what it is.
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual, when you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong. Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual, when you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong.
Right to jail, right away.
First of all, I mean, does everybody realize...
Brett Stevens in the Times.
Pause it here for a second. Look at, I don't know what this guy's name is on the left, the CNN reporter. Look at his face. His face looks like he cannot believe the load of crap he sees coming out of Fauci's mouth. Look at these eyes. This is like...
Yeah, but there are other studies,
look at
Michael, that show at an individual level for individual, when you're talking about the effect on the
Let's hear this.
epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less.
Look at that face. I cannot believe the verbal diarrhea that I hear coming out of Mr. Science's mouth himself.
Strong. Yeah, but there are other studies.
Oh, there were other studies. Yeah, but there were other studies. I'm sorry. Which ones? The ones that were just debunked or the ones that were just demonstrated to have been bad studies? What do they call them? Observational? Anecdotal? Bad? Yeah, but there are other studies. You see, the thing about the mask, when you mandate it for society as a whole, is it doesn't work for society as a whole, but on the individual level, there have been studies that show that sometimes for the person themselves, it works, but it doesn't work for the data as a whole because it's not... Oh my goodness, Rumble isn't working. I have a feeling Rumble is working. Let me refresh. It is working. I see myself on Rumble right now, a manic, bearded, crazy man. Rumble is working. So maybe it was delayed and maybe people have to refresh in order for it to work. He's a very, very, very bad man, Fauci. These are policies. These were studies that were relied on to justify one-size-fits-all policies. Okay, they were wrong about the masks, but on an individual level, sometimes it makes a difference to the person, but doesn't work because the data for the epidemic as a whole are not so good. All right, is that going to be the same thing for the jibby jab? On an individual level, if you're an 85-year-old morbidly obese person with 3 underlying comorbidities, then maybe there's a little bit more benefit than risk. But we applied it as a mandate to everybody, including 16-year-old kids who already had natural immunity from the Rona itself. Yeah, but no. And now, by the way, you see how they have to backtrack and walk it back while maintaining the lie? Because if they admit that they were wrong, they have to admit that they were lying. CTV News is reporting this as well. Here, let's just see. Don't take my word for it. Is it this one? Oh, yeah, it's right over here. Yeah, another tweet from CTV News Ottawa. Thank goodness. Hey, maybe some of them are finally reading the studies, although people were saying this from the beginning, that the studies were bunk. Ontario Ministry of Education will not mandate mask wearing when students return to class this fall. Education Minister Stephen Lecce has confirmed. Oh, by the way, I just do a quick Google search of some of the crap that CTV News ran. Twitter, this is back in the day. Well, I didn't get the date on this one. Twitter has already banned some COVID-related misinformation in December, including falsehoods about how the virus spreads, whether masks are effective. Remember, because that was disinformation 2 years ago to suggest that masks were not effective, and now you got Fauci admitting it. But, on an individual level, sometimes it might work. What do we see here? This was from another CTV News article. The truth. Federal regulators last month revoked their authorization of the drug as an emergency treatment amid growing evidence it doesn't work and can have a deadly side effect. Even if it were effective, it wouldn't negate the need for masks and other measures. This was when they were trying to justify prohibiting certain alternative treatments. It wouldn't negate the need for masks, which don't do anything, but on an individual level, it's like Providence, Rhode Island, CTV News article. As the world races to find a vaccine and treatment for COVID-19, there is seemingly no antidote in sight for the burgeoning outbreak of coronavirus conspiracy theories, hoaxes, anti-mask myths, and sham cures. This is CTV News, the one now that's reporting how the universities aren't going to mandate the masks because we now definitively know what many were saying from the beginning, they don't work. And of all the bizarre and myriad claims about the virus, those regarding masks are proving to be among the most stubborn. Hey, CTV News, do you get labeled misinformation and disinformation now? Oh, no, because you're keeping up with the science, eh? Now we know what we were banning before as speech, calling it misinformation, disinformation, censored off of the YouTubes, channel strikes. What's the word I'm looking for? Bad-mouthing, demonization. Relegation. No, you spouted anti-mask disinformation. You can't have the discussion then. Had we had the discussion then openly, uncensored, we might have come to this new realization 2 years ago. And it's not just that they didn't work, by the way. If only they were not effective, it would have been one thing. And this is my ignorance back in the day. Is like, well, okay, fine. Even if the jibby jab doesn't, do everything they say, well, how much harm can it do? My goodness, do I know the answer to that now? Even if it were just a question of the masks not working, fine. They did damage. Developmental delays in children, especially special needs children. Mask mouth, mask knee, cavities, fungal infections, plastics being found in the lungs of humans for the first time ever, potentially toxic masks. If only all they did was nothing, it would have been bad enough to have been lied to by these scientists, by the media that propped up these scientists, that stifled free speech. If they did only nothing, it would be bad enough. But they did more than nothing. They actually did harm. Oh, but that's misinformation, disinformation. Viva's a conspiracy theorist, except they're now just confirming the conspiracy theorists were right 2 years too late. What's up? We've got a show tonight because there's some good decisions coming out now. Yeah, remember that old, come on, y'all stop it. You're not a horse. You don't take the horse paste, FDA. Well, they're getting spanked in court now, and it's about darn time. All right, but before we get into any of that, good evening. This is the Sunday edition of the Viva and Barnes, a Law for the People live stream, where we talk about all things law and then some. I've been told the show is very popular. I happen to enjoy doing it. I enjoy spending the entire weekend reading all of the stuff that Robert Barnes sends me for homework for the Sunday show. We start live on YouTube, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And then we end on YouTube because I have an exclusive agreement with Rumble, and we want to support the platforms that support free speech. Now, I've just checked the box that says this stream contains a paid promotion because I think I forgot to do that. I always forget something. And you'll notice that it says this stream contains a paid promotion because it does. Before we get into anything, we got the paid sponsor of the evening, which is a product that I use myself, known as fieldofgreens.com, people. Powdered greens. Oh, look, it's very, I say it's not hard to be healthy, but it takes a little bit of discipline. Some days I'm so damn tired, the last thing I want to do is exercise, and that's when I know that the only thing I can do is exercise. Napping will not cure the fatigue. Being healthy is hard work. It takes a little bit of discipline and a little bit of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Most people don't know you're supposed to have between 5 and 7 raw servings of raw fruits and vegetables daily. Why? It's good for roughage. It's good for cleaning out the colon. It's good for getting your antioxidants, your nutrients, your vitamins, and all the good stuff, fibers from fruits and vegetables. I would not be going too far out on a limb to suggest that most people do not have 5 to 7 servings of raw fruits and vegetables a day, especially when they're traveling. When I travel, it's impossible. I went to Subway and I said, I'll take a Subway sandwich, but don't give me the bread and just put all the vegetables in a bowl. When you can't get your servings of raw fruits and vegetables, or even when you can, but you want to have a healthy habit in the afternoon instead of sucking down one of those disgusting Red Bulls or Diet Coke chemical toxic juices, powdered greens, field of greens, it is desiccated fruits and vegetables, not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not an extract, not a supplement. Pulverized, dried, it's delicious. You mix it in water, and 1 spoonful is 1 serving of raw fruits and vegetables a day. You do that twice a day. You cut out a bad habit and you incorporate a good habit. You get your antioxidants, you get all the good stuff that fruits and vegetables have, and you do something good for your body. At the very least, also, you avoid doing something bad for your body. So it's a double good whammy. USDA organic, tastes delicious, made in America, and it's good. Tastes good, looks like swamp water, which is part of the good thing because swamp water is rich in nutrients, as anybody who has ever spent any times in the wetlands knows. Fieldofgreens.com, it'll bring you to Brickhouse Nutrition. Promo code Viva, you'll get 15% off your first order, and it's a good habit. Do it, it's good. I have bad habits as well. A little snifter of martini in the evening, but I also have good habits. Exercise, lifting weights, eating healthy, fruits and vegetables. Fieldofgreens.com, promo code Viva. Now, this is not a sponsor, but my goodness, if I don't show everybody. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. If you want to support what Robert and I do, you can become a supporting member, a supporter at VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. $7 a month, $70 a year, or some people actually willingly contribute more because they like what we do. We have an above average community there, and they have the best memes coming out of Talix in particular, not to forget other people. Talix is the meme master. We are all above average in our community. And a member of our above average community, when Trump got indicted and his mugshot made its way into the public domain, someone said, you need to put that on merch. And getpressed.ca is the merch company that I use. They're based out of Canada. He's like, hey, how do you like this logo? And I said, that's great. I sent it to Barnes, and Barnes said, no. It's got to say wanted on top, for president on the bottom. Wanted for president, mugshot, shot glass. I mean, how much? It writes itself, people. There was another good one. How do I backtrack here? How do I backtrack here? You got wanted for president, mugshot, shot glass. You got wanted for president, mugshot, coffee mug. You see the overlapping play on words here. Go get one if you are so inclined. How do I get back here? Because it was genius. Whoever came up with it, genius, and genius must be, used and exploited in real time. I've ordered some. I want my 1.9 ounce, 2 ounce shot glass so that I can have my evening gin out of a wanted for president shot glass. The mug shot glass, cranky clown. Own a piece of history because we are living through monumental historic times. Cernovich has come around. I say he's come around. He's been pretty consistent, but even Cernovich says, look, DeSantis, great governor. At this point in time, I think there's only one person that can risk saving the country, risk saving the free world, because my goodness. Anyhow, I never tell anybody who to vote for. Even when I ran for the People's Party of Canada, I did not tell people to vote for me. But there are consequences to voting. And sometimes people think there's unfortunately consequences even when you do vote, because, the vote doesn't count. Okay. VivaForI.com for that. Now, what else was it that I was going to bring up, people? There was something else I was going to bring up tonight. Oh, sorry, the standard disclaimers. No legal advice, no medical advice, no election fortification advice. These things that you see here, also a way to support the channel. Rumble, rants, super chats. YouTube takes 30% of that. If you don't like that, you don't want to support YouTube, come on over to Rumble, where we are simultaneously streaming. Rumble takes 20% of those, not 30%. In the ordinary run of things, for the rest of this year, they're taking 0%. So it all goes to the creator. FDR did fireside chats during the Depression. Imagine fireside chats now with President Tucker. I can dream. Tucker will not run for president. I interviewed Chadwick Moore, who wrote the book Tucker, which I listened to. It's a great book. I asked him. He said no, he wouldn't do it simply because he might feel the compulsion to do it, but Chadwick Moore, the author of Tucker, his authorized biography or unauthorized biography, said he wouldn't do it for the family. This is one of the reasons also, getting into why Trump is just different than DeSantis. DeSantis is a great governor who does things well in Florida. Can you imagine subjecting one's family to what would come with running for president? And we've now seen, it used to be once upon a time, you run for president. You get maligned, you get defamed, you get hit pieces, you get, you get mocked, all the crap. It used to be, maybe if you get on the really extreme side of it, you get audited, you have people looking into your past, et cetera. Now we've gotten into a realm where if they don't like you, they will try to put you in jail for the rest of your natural life. That's where we're at right now. They go after your family. They try to put you in jail. They accuse you of crimes that carry very harsh penalties. In the case of Don Jr., treason itself has a very harsh penalty, even if buffoons use the term treason not lightly but improperly. Can you imagine DeSantis, young family, subjecting him and his family to that? Like, it would be too easy to compromise someone by risking locking up their father on human trafficking, kidnapping charges for the Martha's Vineyard migrant thing. Too easy to compromise someone, to threaten them into submission. How anyone deals with what Trump is dealing with, how Trump deals with what he's dealing with right now, he is a man, his foibles, his flaws might be his greatest assets, because there's not very many people on earth that can put up with, deal with, subject themselves to what Trump subjected himself to when he absolutely had no need to do it. I need to get me one of those coffee mug shots. Coffee mug shots. Yeah, it was just like a classic thing that came together. Wanted for president. Speaking of DeSantis being a great governor, he was asked a question by Yankee Pollock today on Twitter about the hurricane response, and it's a great answer. So first of all, the man asking the question is Yankee Pollock on Twitter. Works for Rebel News. Oh, darn it. But anyways, whatever. That's his. I don't remember his handle now. Listen to this question and listen to the answer, because it's a great answer.
Joe Biden and corporate media have been blaming climate change for the natural disasters and the hurricanes. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if you look, there was a storm that went on this almost exact track in 1896, and it had 125 mile an hour winds, just like this one. If you look at the state of Florida, the most powerful storm hurricane we've ever had is actually, the anniversary is now. It's the Labor Day hurricane of 1935. It had 185 mile an hour sustained winds, the most powerful hurricane that's ever been made landfall in the state of Florida, probably in the United States, but certainly in the state of Florida. That ripped up parts of the Florida Keys. It killed hundreds of people. There were people that got caught up in the storm. Their clothes got ripped off their bodies. The wind was so strong. So I think that the notion that somehow
I love watching the
hurricanes
person doing the
new,
thing for the blind,
that's
for the
just
deaf.
false. And we've got to stop politicizing the weather and stop politicizing natural disasters. We know from history there have been times where it's been very busy in Florida, late 40s, early 50s. You had a lot of hits of significant hurricanes. So I think sometimes people need to take a breath and get a little bit of perspective here. But the notion that somehow if we just adopt, very left-wing policies at the federal level, that somehow we will not have hurricanes, that is a lie. And that is people trying to take what's happened with different types of storms and use that as a pretext to advance their agenda on the backs of people that are suffering. And that's wrong, and we're not going to do that in the state of Florida. Thank you.
That is a 10 on 10 for an answer, period. I had to look it up, actually, because I was just like, now that I'm residing in Florida, here, link to tweet. Now that I'm in Florida, I had to look up like the 10 deadliest hurricanes, which admittedly are different than the 10 strongest hurricanes. A lot of people don't realize this. There have been wildly deadly hurricanes. Did I bring the article up? And if you look at the dates on those, they're not recent. I didn't bring the article up. Wait, oh, no. I didn't bring, nerds. I didn't bring up the article. Well, whatever. Two of them were within the 2000s. There was a hurricane in 1930-something. 8,000 people died. They say 8 to 12,000 people. I don't know why they just, can't get an exact figure on that. But they're not new things. You're building property. People have lived here for 100 years, maybe a little more, but in certain areas for the last 100 years. A place that's prone for hurricanes. And oh no, when it happens now, it's climate crisis, despite the fact that it's happened for 100+ years and worse in the past, stronger in the past. And now Barnes is in there. Let me just do one thing before we bring him in. I noticed some 2 Rumble rants, which I shall read. Biden visited and got fed hurricane assistance to Florida right quick. Maybe Biden would have gotten there faster if Hawaii was in danger of flipping red or the governor, other official, was running against him. F my L, which means forget, F my life. Physician's assistant PA spouse is reporting over past 8 months, all but one of the corona patients were vaccinated, with one being transplant patients. So there's that. Well, of course, it makes sense that the only people getting COVID now are vaccinated because everybody's vaccinated, eh? All right, Barnes is in the house. I feel like I've forgotten something, but I'll remember when Barnes gets here. Stop screen. Bringing him in. He's looking dapper as always. In 3, 2, 1. Sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
Robert, what do you have over your shoulder? That's a new book that I'm looking at.
It's a new version of the book that we're reading at the most popular published book per capita in the history of America, not named the Holy Bible, Thomas Paine's Common Sense. We'll be doing my discussion of it this coming Friday at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And because it's the opening of football season around the world, we got European football, we got English football, we got college football, and we got the National Football League. Putting up a little promo for sportspicks.locals.com where we have fun during the weekend.
Robert, have you had a hypothetical, theoretical account that if they had taken all of your advice when you gave it on Sports Picks, what they would have made or lost?
Made more than in any other market that I'm aware of for the last 2 years. We had big picks on the Super Bowl, the World Cup, the European Champions League, the college football final, the college basketball final, the NBA finals, and we won every single one of them last year. And so far, the political betting markets have also been friendly in 2023 as Ron DeSantis just and Trump continues to rise and rise and rise. And Bobby Kennedy's doing not half bad.
Well, I've been noticing, tell me if it's my imagination, Robert Kennedy's been getting a lot less even alternative media coverage now, and it seems to be Vivek that's really been given the spotlight. Am I imagining it, or have you noticed the same thing?
It depends on which part of it. So he got a big first round of Joe Rogan, what's his name, that other big podcaster,
Patrick Bet-David?
Not just him, but the nerdy guy.
Oh, Lex Friedman.
Yeah, that's great. I can just say nerdy guy. We know who it is.
So Lex, no offense, Lex, if you're watching.
Yeah. So a big round. I think, in fact, on his podcast, he's doing a big breakdown with Alex Christoforou of the Duran that I think just uploaded. And so he continues to make the rounds and campaigns in New Hampshire and South Carolina. And Eric Clapton's doing a big fundraiser for him in L.A. So he continues to march onward and upward as well. And I mean, the media seems terrified of him. They say he's wrong, but they won't debate him. They won't even put him on CNN or MSNBC. And Joe Biden, well, I mean, you can understand why he'd be terrified of anybody, but he won't debate him either. And they're trying to rig the primaries because what they do well is rig, whether it's elections or court cases. What the Biden administration, or it's just good old fashioned bribery. They're world-class riggers.
I'm looking for the picture. I'll get the kid up when we get our first story. But no, Robert, it's not rigging. It's fortifying. Okay, we have to use terminology properly. Well, they're just controlling the free flow of information to sway opinions while they change the rules again. We'll see what happens this time around. Okay, tell us what we've got for the show, and then we're going to do our opening segment on YouTube, and then we're going to move on over to Rumble.
So we got a couple of bonus cases up at the top. We got the kid win with the Gadsden flag hat. A big win by against the FDA on ivermectin that has much broader application than just ivermectin. The Nevada and some other states are trying to require, as a matter of their state ERA, that abortion be taxpayer funded. And then our top 12 topics thereafter is a church is suing over COVID spying. The SEC loses again against crypto. The Second Amendment wins in Virginia and against federal law. It's federal court in Virginia. A Wyoming federal judge isn't sure how to define what a woman is. The Trump D.C. trial date is a joke. The Proud Boys sentencing shows the danger of a misapplication of terror laws. A horrifying newspaper raid in Kansas leads to a death in a lawsuit. Adult verification loses for porn against First Amendment challenges in the federal court in Texas. Free speech about COVID on campus went to a federal court. First Amendment win against campaign finance laws. FDA loses again in a case concerning vapes. A big win for the right to petition against employers firing you over vaccine mandates. And then we got winter lyrics so common that they can't be considered copied for copyright purposes. What about that Burger King Whopper? Is it maybe a little too small? Michael Avenatti loses again in appeals court. Giuliani defaults, according to a federal judge, a little bit Alex Jones-ish style in D.C. We'll explain. The Trusted News Initiative has an update, and we'll explain, maybe at the special local session afterwards, why Tyson Foods is going to lose in Tennessee.
Robert, we're going to start with the good one here. Let me just see where the picture is. I love this kid. Oh, I should say that. I admire this kid. Look at this kid's face. Like, anybody who's seen the video, are we looking at the same thing? We are. Anybody who's seen the video could quickly understand with knowledge comes confidence. This is the kid, for those of you who have not heard. I don't know his name. I don't know if he's doing the rounds to answer about this incident. I think his mother has done some interviews. Gets called into the teacher's office or the principal's office. I forget where the school is, because he's got the Gadsden flag on his as a patch on his backpack. Gets called in. Not because the patch itself violates policy. There have been some great memes, like that flag is bad flag, but all these other ones are, BLM, Antifa, the Pride, but those are fine. Gets called in because not that it violated a policy for patches, but because they thought it had ties to slavery and the Civil War. And by the way, this is the picture of the backpack. Who's J-Rod? Is J-Rod for VP? Is that the baseball player that he's talking about? So that's what the backpack looked like. He's got the dog there. It says, Saint Michael protect us. And then the Gadsden flag. Robert, I must admit, as a Canadian boob, until I went to Timcast, I thought that the Gadsden flag also went back to like the Dukes of Hazzard type culture. I had no understanding for what it was. I now do, but tell everybody out there what the history of the Gadsden flag is.
Oh yeah, just don't tread on me. It's an old principle from the American Revolution. In fact, somebody took your anniversary photo and I think memed a "Don't tread on me" flag in between. So it's you and Marion with a "Don't tread on me" flag in front. So it was another ludicrous interpretation by another lunatic school. And credit to the kid for standing up for what's right.
It's fantastic. All right, that was the white pill, I guess. We
can do the most popular question on our board today is the big win that came down this maybe on Friday actually against the Food and Drug Administration concerning ivermectin, but its impact is much broader than that.
Well, so let me pull up the link just so we can highlight the conclusion, because it's a great conclusion. Who was the plaintiff in this?
Dr. Bowd, several doctors. Dr. Bowd was one of them. Dr. Merritt, I think, was another one. A bunch of doctors basically brought the challenge. And
so we'll just read the conclusion, and then, Robert, you'll explain why it obviously has broader impact than just this decision. They were suing for declaratory judgment, among other things. You'll flesh that out as well. But it says the conclusion. This is just a summary of the entire case. FDA, and I love it, by the way. It's well drafted. FDA is not a physician. It has authority to inform, announce, and apprise, the trilogy. Not endorse, denounce, or advise. It's beautiful. Bam, 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 and it rhymes. It goes by the rule of threes. The doctors have plausibly alleged that FDA's posts fell on the wrong side of the line between telling about and telling two. Y'all remember, you're not a horse. Don't take the horse pace. Stop it, y'all. I mean, then they have to talk in a vernacular like they think they're talking down to people who are incapable of understanding. As such, the doctors can use the APA to assert their ultraviolet virus claims against the agencies and the officials. Even tweet-sized doses of personalized medical advice are beyond FDA's statutory authority. Robert, I guess you might want to get into the ultra-virus claim that it's beyond the scope of the FDA's authority. Maybe flesh that out for people.
So, yeah, the district court had denied any right to sue on the grounds that they were not within the protected interest and that they couldn't sue, and sovereign immunity applied. They still have to get to standing on remand, but the logic that the court applies would say they would have standing as well, since, as the court itself acknowledges, there's an overlap with that and whether or not you fit within in the sovereign immunity analysis. So, generally speaking, you can't sue the federal government. I've disagreed with this from its inception. The doctrine of sovereign immunity derives from the idea that the king, as representative of God, can do no wrong. That's abhorrent to the American Constitution and to the American sense of liberty and the Declaration of Independence and common sense, and the don't tread on me principle and precept necessarily so. But the courts invented it, and then the politicians embraced it to be able to pretend that they're God when they act. So that's my first problem with all of this sovereign immunity garbage. But putting that aside, there is still a exception to sovereign immunity under both federal common law and under the Administrative Procedures Act, passed as amended in 1976, which provides that if a government official or agency is acting outside of its authority, and the way to think of this, and this will be a recurring theme tonight in some range of context, is a lot of its agency principles. For those lawyers that remember biz orgs and that I think that was my highest grade actually in law school, even though that was another class I don't think I ever attended. I'm not even sure who taught that class. But I showed up for the exam. And that was another one where I filled out the teacher grade. Everybody laughed because I'd never been there, but good teacher. Proof of it. But when it's somebody acting within their authority, like your employee, or if you're an employee, the same kind of principles here. In other words, they're clothed in the power of the state. When are they in fact clothed in the power of the state, and when are they not? And the issue is that if there's a specific law that says you can't do A, B, C, or D, then you're clearly not clothed in the power of the state when you act. And so consequently, under the federal common law, they've acknowledged that you can bring a suit for declaratory or injunctive reasons, or even against them individually, because they're not acting in their sovereign capacity. They're no longer clothed with state authority. They were doing so on a personal, individual basis because they weren't given to it. The Administrative Procedures Act went further and just said, and they call it a non-statutory cause of action, which can be confusing to people because it's a statute that's being cited for the non-statutory cause of action. But what they mean by that is whenever you're suing because the person acted outside their authority, the Administrative Procedures Act gives you a right to sue on those grounds, independent of the rest of the Administrative Procedures Act. So all you have to show is that the agency took an action, and that action specifically adversely impacted you, and that the action that they took was either specifically denied them or without any color of authority for them to legally do. And here, the FDA has been for a long time, for people that don't know, the Food and Drug Administration, like to some degree the U.S. Department of Agriculture, but especially the Food and Drug Administration, was originally, those laws were passed simply to make sure there was accuracy in marketing. They were not supposed to be the world's doctor. That was not supposed to happen. Some people warned that would happen, but that was not what the law provided for. That wasn't the public policy or rationale behind it. To make that clear, in the law itself, it says the FDA nothing in the law shall be used for the FDA to interfere with a provider's right, a healthcare provider's right to prescribe something legally to a patient. So they made clear that the doctors provide medicine, the states regulate medicine, not the federal government. The federal government is in the accuracy and marketing business, as the court noted, to provide data and information, not provide medical advice. So the doctors sued saying, look, the FDA is no longer providing information. They're providing opinions with imperative recommendations that override and are endangering actual medical advice by actual doctors to real patients, to such a degree that medical boards and credentialing agencies were using it to go after these doctors, as well as them being subject to smear and censorship campaigns and being subject to being terminated and fired by various people, including insurance providers or hospitals or universities where they may be employed. And so they brought suit saying the FDA has no business doing this. And so the district court sued saying everybody's immune. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals came in and unanimously ruled, no, they're not. And they famously started off the opinion with the FDA's advice saying you're not a horse.
I'll bring it up because people have to understand it was not just saying it was not information. It was this is instruction. You are not a horse. You are not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it. Thank you for taking the job of every private doctor and with their patient out there, FDA, for telling people what to do. So that they came to the conclusion this was not just a mere statement of fact or whatever. It was instruction, advice.
Exactly. And they said the law is clear. The FDA has no such authority. Congress took it away from them, especially as it impacts the patient-provider relationship. And what they ultimately and repeatedly said, the FDA cannot endorse, denounce, advise on medical care. They cannot, quote, give personalized medical advice. All of that is beyond their authority. And anybody that does so can now be sued without risk of sovereign immunity if they've been specifically adversely impacted by it. That's where the significance of this opinion goes way past ivermectin, because the FDA has been doing this in a lot of contexts, including the COVID vaccine context. So we brought suit with an appeal currently pending on behalf of Children's Health Defense against the FDA before this same Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the issue was the FDA lying to parents to try to get their kids vaccinated against what was in the interest of what honest and accurate information would have provided. So to me, and one of the grounds the district court dismissed was sovereign immunity. So in my view, that those grounds should be clearly reversed. He also dismissed on grounds of standing. The same logic would apply. That should be clearly reversed. So not only does it impact that case, but it impacts other cases that we are looking at with Children's Health Defense, because a lot of state officials, a lot of federal officials have been out there lying to people. We're looking at behalf of people who've been injured or died from the vaccine, also looking to potentially sue everybody who lied about this. Not only suing Dr. Fauci, who lied about this, got caught lying even to CNN, by CNN of all people, this past weekend about all the mask lies he'd been telling. But for example, every single one of those late night hosts went out and gave false information to people about the vaccine. I don't know why they can't be sued. All those people cheerleading those Alex Jones suits that radically expanded the law of liability for statements you make. Okay, let's time for the what's good for the goose to be good for the gander. And so we're looking at suing everybody who went out and lied about the vaccine, its safety, lied about its efficacy, lied about ivermectin. Why did that matter? Well, Pfizer went berserk. Pfizer's lawyers went berserk when we pointed out in the amended complaint that ivermectin was in fact an effective alternative. And so had Pfizer acknowledged or admitted that, then Pfizer never would have got any authorization for the vaccine and the billions of dollars they stuck in their pocket. And so they went nuts saying, how dare you suggest ivermectin can be effective? Why? Because it was effective, as has now been admitted by more and more authorities, and was clear at the time to a wide range of well-recognized and well-regarded and well-respected doctors. So to me, anybody who lied about ivermectin can be potentially liable, because even though there's legal immunity for the drug companies from the injuries caused by the vaccine, it's not clear everybody else is immune.
And so I brought up the tweet, or this was the article. FDA says telling people not to take ivermectin for COVID-19 was just a recommendation. Even if you buy that, which is bullshit, it's a recommendation that they had no statutory authority to make in the first place. And so the idea here, Robert, is it's ultra-virus, their statutory authority, therefore they don't get to claim sovereign immunity or qualify. Which was, what is it?
Yeah.
Sovereign or
Yeah,
qualified?
sovereign immunity.
Okay.
And ultra-virus, for those people who wonder, it just means without authority. You did something without authority.
Now, when you first sent that to me, I appreciate exactly what you're talking about here in terms of other medical advice that they might have given as relates to other drugs. I immediately thought, yes, going after Rachel Maddow for begging people to go get vaccinated. It's if you've been hesitant, just do it. But then I was also thinking, like, YouTube censorship, taking down videos that contained medical advice. I guess the idea here is it wouldn't apply because they're not a government body, so the APA wouldn't apply. But does this open the door for broader civil actions potentially? Because the idea here is if the FDA couldn't give medical recommendations because it was beyond their authority, surely non-government agencies or non-medical professionals ought never have done the same thing.
All these people pretending to be doctors saying that there was medical advice. I mean, the conclusion was the FDA had no authority to act as a doctor. Well, nor did any of these other people. And they don't have sovereign immunity to begin with. So it's looking at who can its legal remedy be sought about for participating in a censorship campaign, for participating in a propaganda campaign that led to the injury and death of millions of people around the world.
All right. On that note, everybody, I'm going to give the link one more time for Rumble because we're going to come off the platform that censored and I dare say cost people's lives, and we're going to go to the platform or stay on the platform exclusively, the one that I arguably will say did save lives and allows free speech in the relevant political meaningful sense. Ending on YouTube, people, the link to Rumble is over there. You can also come, if you are so inclined, to watch at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where we're going to have an exclusive after show. So one or the other, Rumble or Locals, but we are for sure ending on YouTube now. 3, 2, 1, booyah. All right, Roberts, that is, it's phenomenal. I mean, we'll see where it goes. And I guess that is a white pill moment. Are there recourse? I mean, what is there recourse? The government's going to take it the next step on appeal? Could they?
That would be the U.S. Supreme Court. I find that ill-advised by them.
Or may I ask why?
Because all that could likely happen is they lose worse.
Okay. And now one other question that I have to ask. We talked about it at the time. In order to get the emergency use authorization for the jibby jab, there had to have been no existing, not therapeutics, but no existing remedy or no existing methods for treatment. Someone had recently, I forget where it came from, said that that was false. That was wrong. RFK is wrong for having said it. And that it's not factually correct. And then I know who I trust, but can you add to that or clarify that? Is it in fact the case that they would not have gotten emergency use authorization if there had existed other alternative remedies?
That's indisputable. That's indisputable. Anybody saying otherwise can't read a law.
Okay, good. Just end it. The people, they plant a seed of doubt in my own spirit, Robert, and then I don't know what to believe anymore. All right, what do we do? Do we go on the COVID stuff? Go to the church spying?
Yeah.
Robert, okay, so this is cool. I mean, I've read it. It's interesting. They've been doing this in Canada for a little while now. So there was a church that got fined something like $1.1 million for violating COVID protocol or violating whatever the hell the mandates were in California. They didn't have great success on challenging those fines, but now they're suing. I forget the remedies that they're seeking, but they are alleging, and it's not, I guess it's not really an allegation. It's confirmed fact that the city or the municipality, the state, Santa Clara was using, what was the app that they were using to track the movement of congregants to the church? And it's Calvary, not cavalry, people. They were tracking the movements using this app. The app designer says we never authorized them to collect this data to track the movement of congregants, to see who was going in, where they were going, when they were going. Trudeau has been doing this in Canada using cell tower communications to track people's movements during COVID. They're suing. Flesh it out for us.
So basically it's called geofencing or geotargeting. So the Santa Clara, under the guise of research, was figuring out when are those church people getting together? Are they 6 feet apart? Are they singing again? Because remember, COVID magically always found small businesses, it found churches, it found little parochial schools. You know, if it saw a Costco or a Walmart or a bar or a gambling establishment, a bunch of those, it magically it stayed away from. No problems. But if it was a BLM protest, it stayed away. But if it had people singing psalms, by golly, it invaded there right away. And so he had to make sure those people weren't singing, weren't gathering together in church. So they illicitly were monitoring what the parishioners were up to. I mean, this gives you an idea of how obsessed they were, targeting this one little church, not only with ridiculous fines, but also targeting them with massive spying to make sure they weren't meeting for church, to make sure they weren't singing psalms, using cell phone data to do it. And their excuse was that it wasn't illegal. They had no warrant to do it. Their only excuse is that it was for research purposes. The problem is there is no research exception to illegally spying on people by the government. So the violations are, Fourth Amendment is the big one because the invasion of a protected right, the right loosely, colloquially known as privacy, the right to be secure in your person and papers, in the words of the Fourth Amendment, that was clearly and irreducibly invaded here. But it's also a violation of your First Amendment right because they were targeting a church. So the targeting a church is almost like an establishment of religion of its own kind. It's by the state. It's also targeting the people suing the state, or suing, in this case, Santa Clara. So it's retaliatory in violation of the First Amendment, an issue we've discussed in all the Trump indictments. And I went into in some detail on the interview with Donald Trump Jr. on his show on Trigger that you can get on Rumble, and then exclusively on Rumble. And then on top of that, they brought a First Amendment free exercise of speech because it was also intended to discriminate against them because of their exercise of speech. So they have a robust constitutional challenge you can bring against a county government on grounds of Section 1983 of Title 42 of the United States Code, enforcing the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution.
And there was the argument that that this was not being applied evenly to all businesses, that they were being not disparately targeted, but rather specifically targeted.
It would be a violation of everybody's Fourth Amendment rights if they did it to everybody. But what makes it a First Amendment violation is they were targeting a church. They were targeting him for speech and retaliatory reasons.
And I love that the geofencing app, whoever designed it, said this was not data that we authorized them to collect. They did this on their own, and we had nothing to do with it. Not that it didn't happen. It's nuts. I mean, they were doing this in Canada as well by tracking cell data to monitor the movement of Canadians during the pandemic. They tested propaganda techniques through the military, spying techniques through cellular data, and that's it. They're the good guys. You have to remember that. They did it for our safety.
It was a test in totalitarianism. It was a Milgram experiment combined with a test in totalitarianism. That's what the pandemic response was. How much could the state seize power? And it red-pilled people like Robert Kennedy, and why he's running for president.
Now, I shared the link of your interview with Don Jr. because it was amazing, and I posted some 4 key highlights everywhere. Amazing. All right, good. Next one on the menu, Robert, is, let me see here. It's the SEC. Okay, Robert, my brain shuts off when I try to do anything related to crypto. I listen to nerdlingers try to explain it. I still understand nothing. They were trying to, what was it? This is the one they were trying to have an ETF for, was it futures for crypto? And they were going to get SEC authorization because it's a derivative of crypto trading that is already authorized, and the SEC said no, and they didn't sue to overturn the decision. They just said, you got it wrong, re-review it because we think that you should authorize us to do the trading that we want to do, which is, I forget the word now. Anyways, you'll get it from me. So Robert, I don't understand anything about crypto, how it works, what any of these words mean, but the bottom line, they've won in that the courts have said the SEC should reconsider or has to reconsider their refusal to, what is the word? Authorize?
To approve it to be publicly traded in a way that has certain economic benefits to the company.
What is the product that they're trying to sell? Like, how does it work? Is it
so? It's an exchange. The only thing that was different than the ones that had been approved was they owned Bitcoin, owned a very large share of Bitcoin, rather than owning just Bitcoin futures. And the point the DC Court of Appeals made is that you have to treat like-minded applicants the same, and that if you treat them differently, you better have a good policy rationale to do so. And said the SEC did not, because the SEC's attempt to distinguish between owning Bitcoin and owning Bitcoin futures was incredulous. So this is the second big loss after the Ripple loss for the SEC's attempt to control the crypto economy. And what was interesting is they pointed out the active trading in Bitcoin is bigger than many stocks on a daily basis. I think they listed, almost $50 billion a day in trading takes place. This tells you how big the Bitcoin economy is. And that the SEC was trying to pretend it was a marginal place where disparate actors could unduly, fraudulently influence the market. And that's why they had to treat Bitcoin owners different than Bitcoin futures owners. And the court said that was unpersuasive given the actual data. So the bigger ramification is not specific to Grayscale, who won the case. It'll financially benefit them and their owners and investors. But more significantly, it's that the courts are steadily now rejecting the SEC's attempt to control crypto.
All right. And from what I understand, the SEC has 45 days to potentially appeal the decision if they want to. Otherwise, they have to reassess. What I mean, could they not find another reason to refuse? Is the word accreditation?
Well, in essence, it allow them to market it in a certain way. The SEC is another agency that's supposed to be in the marketing business, not the substance of regulation business. But they've long co-opted one and usurped one for the other. But basically, allow them to market it in a certain way in exchange for public markets that gives them certain economic advantages that are otherwise difficult to obtain.
Okay.
They'll win. Grayscale will win on remand.
Okay. Excellent. Off to the next one. A Second Amendment win in, what was the state again? It was Virginia.
It's about federal law, but it was in federal court in Virginia.
And this was the case where they were trying to limit or create restrictions for the age of 18 to 21 for firearm ownership. And the restrictions have been deemed to be violative of the Second Amendment because even if it's temporally limited when you're 18 to 21, it nonetheless frustrates your exercise of your constitutional Second Amendment rights. That's a very, very broad oversimplification, but flesh that one out.
And remember the Fourth Circuit dodged this when we discussed it by coming up with a lame mootness argument that allowed them to evade it. So this is another federal court, I believe also in the Fourth Circuit, that said no, that they held a whole bench trial on it and said it's quite clear that there is no history of the government's being allowed to restrain legal adults, those 18 or above, from owning guns. And so all the federal laws that prohibit them from getting certain kinds of firearms are clearly in violation of the Second Amendment. And so that's where the law is going, and it's another expansion and extension of Bruen, which about 90% of the federal court cases since Bruen have said have struck down laws. You got a few lefty courts trying to gut it. Those decisions, I think, will ultimately probably have to end up back before the U.S. Supreme Court. But people shouldn't miss that the bulk of the cases have struck down both state and federal laws that try to limit Second Amendment rights that don't have. They really need to prove that the restriction is rooted in the nation's history. And if they can't, then they're not going to prevail.
Yeah, this one seemed like a no-brainer, but seeing the way states have then, subsequent to Bruen, enacted state laws that basically are totally violative of the Bruen precedent nonetheless. And this was that any restriction or any impediment for 18 to 21-year-olds, even if it's temporally limited, nonetheless has no historical justification and is a unlawful frustration of Second Amendment, exercise of Second Amendment rights. All right. Now, this one's going to be fun, Robert, and I've been doing my homework on this one today. We talked about it a while back, and I love it when things come to fruition and what you said way back in the day is even more prescient or even more relevant now. This was the Kappa Kappa Gamma or Gamma Gamma Kappa, I forget which, Kappa Kappa Gamma, a Wyoming sorority for women. In their 1870 bylaw constituting documents, It's for women of exceptional character, yada, yada, yada. And I guess it was up until 2018 when they, it's not even a directive. It's some sort of declaration for allyship with the LGBTQ2IA plus movement. And it talks about how to be an ally, what's the word? When you are not tolerant, but rather inclusivity. Now the members can be women or people who identify as women in this 2018 document, which arguable whether or not it can modify the core constituting documents of 1870. This was Artemis, forget his last name, a man. I mean, I'm not calling it anything other than that. A man with a boner, more often than not, while he's in there staring at his sorority girls, joined and was approved to be a member of the sorority. So we had talked about
not by the sorority. It was by the national, when there was some sort of requirement foisted on them that they didn't want to abide by.
There was some chicanery potentially or backdoor, pun intended, backdoor method through which Artemis, a man who allegedly identifies as a woman but is not doing a very good job hiding his erection while he's sitting there fraternizing with the ladies while they get changed, got in. And the judge is going to hang his hat on the fact that the person was allowed to become a member. The sorority, 6 sorority girls sued. I think at the time they tried to file the lawsuit anonymously, and then they were denied the right to do that. I think they had to identify themselves, and they said that led to some problems. They sued the sorority. I think they sued the university. Maybe not the university. They sued to say that this man has no business being in a women's sorority. They're not upholding their bylaws. They're not upholding their constitution, their constituting documents. And the judge now infamously said, it's not up to me here to decide what a woman is. Like literally Ketanji Jackson Brown. And said, no, they authorized this person to be allowed in. Their documents, the 2018 declaration, which talks about LGBTQ inclusiveness, says you can be a woman or someone identifying as a woman. Dismissed the lawsuit. Nate Brody did a breakdown. And I think he's right in explaining why the judge is, he didn't explain why the judge is wrong. He said the judge got it right. Their bylaws don't define woman. They had this 2018 addendum, if it can be called that, and I think that's a legal question that the judge dodged, that says women or people identifying as women can become members, and said, look, you approved it, you allow it, and if it's not up to me to define what a woman is, you guys have opted for the expansive definition of a woman. I think the judge got it right while getting it wrong. What's your take on it?
I just think that, we live in an age in which you can actually see a headline that says federal judge, I don't know what a woman is, and think, yeah, that sounds like a federal court ruling these days. It's when you're mentioning backdoor, I thought you were talking about the film career of the Fulton County Sheriff. According to rumors, I can't personally confirm anything.
There's video that seems to confirm that rumor, which I have not seen.
It sure does. It looks like, if you talk about mugshots of mugshots, no wonder the guy likes mugshot. I think he's got a thing for Trump. But I think it just is a sign of the times. Credit to Megyn Kelly, who started to aggressively push back on all of this, because I think she correctly sees this in the same way the author of Harry Potter sees it, as the trans movement is really an attack on women. That's what it is. It's an attack on women's sports, an attack on women's security in private spaces and spaces meant for women. And to me, what took place by the sorority was clearly in circumvention of their understanding at the time they formed the sorority. It's it tells you how nuts things are getting when sororities are letting men. It's like a perverted version of Revenge of the Nerds, except it's the tranny showing up to stare at everybody. They're destroying the sorority lifestyle, but it's because they've been taken over. The co-option of our society by almost a monopoly on power by the professional managerial class. And I'm not saying there's no role for the professional managerial class, but it needs to be a lot less than what it is. And what you're seeing is they've co-opted the judiciary, they've co-opted the state bureaucracies, they've co-opted most of the political class. Most of our so-called representatives come from the same professional managerial class. They've co-opted Hollywood. They've co-opted our educational institutions, our culture-shaping institutions, our news-shaping institutions. And now we're seeing the consequences of it when they have these very distorted definitions of things as simple and straightforward as biology to where a judge could say that without thinking it sounds kind of dumb.
And I'll steelman it for everybody out there. Let me just get the mission. This is the mission statement of Kappa Kappa Gamma. Our mission and values. Our mission. We unite women to learn, grow, and inspire positive change throughout their lives. Now, I can't find
not men pretending to be women.
Well, and that's.
And I don't see any men pretending to be women in those photos neither.
Robert, don't curse.
We're on Rumble, so we can say what we want.
No, forget that. I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying, don't give them any ideas. They're going to have to include a transgender person in the photo.
Yeah, but what happens when they do? Did the girls get all excited about going to that sorority?
But
no,
Robert,
thank you.
I'm going to share the next document, which is what the judge hung his hat on. Mission and value. What the heck is the problem here? I have the. Where is it? Window. Let me just hear. I need to bring it up because it is Kappa Kappa Gamma. I think it's this. Here we go. Founded more than 100. We're looking at the same thing. Founded more than 150 years ago. This is the guide for supporting our LGBTQIA plus members. Kappa Kappa Gamma was founded more than 150 years ago. Integrity, respect, regards for others. 1870. It was founded for women, and they have this document from 2018. It says Kappa Kappa Gamma values diversity and inclusion and does not discriminate based on race, national origin, yada, yada, yada. Sexual orientation, gender identity. Oops, what did I just do up here? How did that happen? Oh, cripe. Gender identity. Membership selection. Kappa Gamma Gamma is a single gender organization comprised of women and individuals who identify as women. This is what the judge hung his hat on and said, look, it's in their 2018 declaration of allyship to the LGBTQ community. And it's like, I was thinking legally, how could they change their bylaws? Was that a legally done change?
I don't see that. I thought he sort of he quickly opted out because he probably, or I don't know if he or she, the judge probably supports the underlying agenda.
Oh, it was a he. It was a he. I said, and then the judge says, well, I'm not defining what a woman is today. Well, nor do you have to, because when they incorporated that Kappa Gamma Gamma, whatever it is, sorority in 1870, they didn't need to define what a woman meant. That's why they set it up. It was for women, not men. If they wanted to include men who identify as women, they would have said people, not women. Okay. And yeah, so that's it. So all that to say is, the judge may be technically right, but substantively he is wrong, and it's a travesty and a farce, and he should be made fun of and mocked publicly, as should ever mocked in the legal sense. All right, Robert. Oh, and by the way, sorry. Also, the prescient thing that we said at the time: if this fails, sue for sexual harassment. It's not because the dude identifies as a woman that he can spring a boner and look at women while they're getting changed, and sue the sorority for facilitating sexual harassment.
That's true.
All right, what do we have next, Robert? The Trump DC trial date. Okay, what's the latest?
The judge set a ridiculous date, a date that even some of the looniest lefty lawyers recognized was really bad. That you even had some Democratic hacks out there. There's the media hacks that are just making up law and legal claims. It's just incredible. But at least some of them are like, oh, this is kind of bad.
Well, Robert, you're sparing the punchline. A 6-week trial starting on March 4, the day before Super Tuesday, in D.C., with a judge who seemed to have been coordinating with the other judges to make sure they could keep Trump locked up in trial March, April, May, June, and for the rest of his life. I'm sorry. So, yeah, go on and tell us why it's preposterous.
I know of no example, nor could the government cite an example, where any case with this amount of discovery has ever gone to trial this fast in the history of federal courts.
12.1 million pages of documents. But, Robert, they say there's a lot of duplicates. So once you've sorted out the duplicates, then you can get to reviewing the 8 million documents that are left.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the document side. That does not include all of the witness interviews, which they admit there's something like more than 200. So you got to go through hundreds, and they didn't say how many hours those are. So, you're probably talking about 1,000 hours of interview time alone. So and that doesn't include all the legal issues. She's requiring motions to dismiss because the court needs lots of time just to deal with a motion to dismiss, by the way. It's always interesting. The courts are like, you defense lawyer, you can go through millions of pages in no time. Oh, but I need at least 6 months to hear a motion to dismiss. Oh, really? So it takes you 6 months to rule, but I'm supposed to have 6 weeks to draft it. How's that work? The judge is a fraud, as the New York Post printed. She's the scion of a bunch of communists, foreign communists. We have a foreign communist on deciding the future of the 2024 presidential election. That's how insane it is. The credit to Congressman Gates, who said at a minimum there should be a congressional reprimand considered, and in my view, they should start to escalate towards impeachment, because this is a judge who's violating her oath. This is a judge who is prejudiced and should not be presiding over proceedings. She's violating, and according to Democrats, right, their Supreme Court proposed legislation, violating your ethics is grounds for impeachment. Okay, well, this judge is violating her ethics because she is clearly compromised and conflicted by her own words on the record, because all these judges had to yip, yip, yip when it came to January 6th sentencing. She made clear she thought Trump already belonged in prison before the indictment was even brought. So, and here she is coordinating, not with the Republican appointees in Georgia or Florida, but the Democratic appointee in New York about how to coordinate the attack on Trump. This is not within her proper protocol or procedure. Quite frankly, she shouldn't be having such conversations. If any such conversations would even take place, all counsel and all parties should have the opportunity to be present. That itself, in my view, is another additional ethical breach and breach of her constitutional obligation. But it is utterly absurd. In any case, putting aside that it's Trump, put aside that it's right in the middle of the 2024 election, put aside that she's trying to schedule this so that Trump has to be in trial during all the key primaries, because he has to be there. He's not allowed to waive his appearance. So he has to be in federal court all of March, all of April, and given how the trial is scheduled, all of May. In other words, during all the primaries. He can't, she is prohibiting him from campaigning.
Robert, it makes me angry because it's so egregious that the only people who cannot, there's no one on earth dumb enough to not understand this. You can only be a liar and a fiend. Chris Christie seems to be both. There has not been any case brought to trial within, 6 months, ever. Judge didn't have one, prosecution couldn't find one. Given this volume of stuff, the judge keeps saying, I'm not treating him any different than anybody else. And I don't have to worry about, it's none of my business if he's got a job or whatever. Like if it were a doctor who had life-saving surgery, am I wrong in thinking the judge is lying here? Like it's not true that if it was someone with a sufficiently, like the World Series baseball player, they might schedule the trial around the World Series if they make it to the final. Am I not wrong in thinking that?
It depends on the circumstance. But what's unique here is this is election interference. This is a First Amendment issue. So treating a running for the presidency and the peak of the presidential campaign as no different than any other person's job is just ridiculous. It ignores the First Amendment consequences of the prosecution. And so it reflects, and quite clearly, she chose the date to punish Trump and to hurt his election chances. She did it for impermissible First Amendment reasons. She's lying when she's saying she's treating him like anyone else, because if he was treated like anyone else, in misdemeanor January 6th cases, she extended for at least a year before trial.
People need to.
So what's your excuse on this one?
People need to understand this. A few people have been pointing this out. It's patently obvious. Those cases for the Jan 6, or some of whom were in jail pending their trials, which were not speedy at all. Complicated, need delays because the delay punishes the defendant. Here, it's totally simple. It's just the former president leading candidate rushed to trial because it penalizes the defendant.
Well, she made even more clear. She threatened defense counsel that they can't even use survey evidence or to show that the venue is prejudiced, because she knows as well as everybody there's no chance of a D.C. jury being impartial, that you cannot get a constitutionally appropriate trial in D.C. if you're named Donald Trump or anybody connected to him, but especially if you're named Donald Trump. So what did she do? She said that they have to tell her before they do any surveying, because she would consider that trying to taint the jury pool. This is a long-standing abuse of judicial power. It has no business. Judges occasionally try it with me, and I push back very quickly. It's like none of your business. It's called the First Amendment. You got a problem with it, step down from the bench, because you got no business being up there. You have a right to speech. You have a right to defend your client in public. In order to have impairment of the jury, Supreme Court has made this clear. You've got to show that it's got a substantial risk that you cannot get a impartial jury, and that has to be based on impermissible, inadmissible information, so inflammatory and so pervasive and so close in proximity to the jury that not even jury selection can filter out the bias. All right. And this is, don't go on national TV, local TV, every single radio, the day of jury selection or the day or two before is talking about inadmissible evidence, right? That's what that's for. Every lawyer knows it. Every judge knows it. So this judge was lying again, misusing and abusing her power again, violating her ethics again, when she threatened them that if they develop the evidence in support of their Fifth Amendment right to transfer venue claims, she will try to hold it against them or prevent them from doing it. So, I mean, I said from the beginning. Now, the one mistake made by Trump's defense team, I said from the beginning, file a motion to disqualify this judge out of the gate. When you have a biased judge, you cannot sit there on your hands. And this happens all the time. And so and usually this is the response I always get from other lawyers. Oh, don't do that. The judge will be mad. I'm like, think about that for a second. If you think telling the judge you think the judge is impartial, and that is partial, not impartial, and that consequently it will prejudice your client's rights, and you think the judge will be adverse to you because of bringing that motion, that's exactly when you have to bring the motion, because that's how partial and prejudicial the judge is. There's no better proof of it than judges that would punish you for bringing that motion. It's like saying don't assert your First Amendment rights because they'll retaliate against you if they do. That's exactly the kind of person you have to assert your First Amendment rights with. And here, Trump's lawyers made a mistake by Trump himself said he wanted it, publicly said he wanted a motion to disqualify brought. And his lawyers are like, oh, I don't want to upset the judge. Maybe they won't be mean to me. No, this is a corrupt rogue judge. Put it on the record. Go at it. Deal with it up front. You can't let her continue to screw, because then what the judge will say is, oh, you're just mad at my rulings. And they like to weasel out that way. Don't wait for the judge to prove their prejudice. When you know they're prejudiced, put it on the record from the get-go. And if they're going to punish you, it further documents your case, further substantiates your case, both for appeal and for the court of public opinion. You bring the motion to disqualify early because that's an appealable denial. And people are confused out there with appeals as of right versus appeals as interlocutory or writs. Dershowitz has explained that you can bring a lot of these appeals as interlocutory and writs. Yes, they don't have to take it. Everybody knows that. Supreme Court doesn't have to take anything ever. That should not be your guiding principle. Does it give you the opportunity to knock on their door? And when you have a judge that is way past any degree of logic or reason or ethics or morals, and is out to rig the trial against your client so that she can rig the election, she's involved in a criminal conspiracy to deprive the American people of her rights. According to the theory of Jack Smith, it's this judge that belongs in federal prison, not the people she wants to lock up or has locked up. And you cannot sit there and play nice with those kind of rogue judges. A corrupt king does not respect deference. When you bow before them, they cut your head off. They only respect it if you expose them for who they are, is the only chance you have. Might the judge still screw you? Absolutely. But that meant they were always going to screw you. So play out what the probabilities are. Does it give you any chance of relief or any chance of improvement to be able to bring the motion? They needed to bring this yesterday. They need to start bringing it now. Trump's lawyers have been so far, frankly, mediocre. And they need to. This is the most constitutionally consequential case in the history of our country. It's not here for mediocrity. They need to step it up, quit being wusses, quit hiding behind things, quit worrying about their license, quit worrying about what the government can do to you, because you keep doing that, you don't live. That's this is what Nelson Mandela, Medgar Evers, the great quote, I gave it on Donald Trump Jr.'s interview, that I learned as a kid. Medgar Evers' famous statement when they asked him why he wasn't afraid to die, and this was a man who ultimately was assassinated on his front lawn. I said, most men die 1,000 deaths every day. I'm only going to die once. If you're going to be a lawyer and take this case, you need to have that mentality and that mindset, or they will steamroll you.
playing devil's advocate, or maybe just, the counter argument now. They can't undo what has not been done. They can't do what has not been done, but now they have more fodder to the argument for a biased judge, the statements made in the past, and this patently
Unfortunately, here's what the judges do. They say, oh, you're just complaining about my rulings.
Yeah.
And so it always undermines your ability to bring a disqualification motion. Yes, absolutely, go ahead and bring it now. No doubt about that. But the problem is when you wait for the judge to make a ruling, even the higher courts look askew at you if you didn't bring it before they made the bad ruling. Because otherwise they think this is just a disguised appeal of the ruling you don't like. And that's why you had to bring this right out of the gate. You had to put them on blast. Know what they're doing. You know what they're doing. You got to say it, take the heat, roll with it, and act accordingly, and put them to the test. If you play ball, if you play nice, they will steamroll you, and that's what this judge is doing to Trump's team.
It's almost like a joke. Like, it's an in-your-face needle. I'm going to start this trial the day before Super Tuesday. Can you? I mean, first of all,
the lawyer. To his credit, Trump's lawyer said, "By the way, this guarantees ineffective assistance of counsel. We cannot prepare in that time. We cannot. It's impossible." And she didn't care, right? I mean, the goal here is clearly not only derail his campaign by having him in trial the whole time, have that be the national news narrative, that trial, rather than what he's saying on the campaign trail, have that be the national news narrative rather than Biden be the national news narrative. But the goal is to try to convict him before the election day. They believe as long as they can convict him before election day, that enough of his voters will abandon him, and that will defeat his campaign. Now, I think they're wrong on that assumption, but putting that aside, it's clear this is pure election interference. This indictment is itself the conspiracy. The indictment that accuses Trump of conspiring to deprive people of their civil rights. The indictment is the conspiracy to deprive the American people of their civil rights.
I mean, you cannot repeat that enough, but people have to also understand and explain to it the impropriety. Judges are going to talk. They're going, judges, they meet at a fancy cocktail party. They go, oh, you're on the Trump case in New York. I'm on the Trump case in D.C. Can you explain how transparently improper it is for her to ex parte, without the other parties being present, call up the New York judge or however the hell it happened and coordinate for the trial? I mean, this is
completely. I mean, you're attempting to impact the defendant's rights without the parties being present or their counsel being even aware. And that's patently unethical. Put it this way, if any of the Trump's lawyers had done it, they would be in jail. I mean, so how is it okay for the judge to do it? It's not okay for the judge to do it. That if you want to coordinate that, I've been in cases that have conflicts. Mm-hmm. What happens is the court lets everybody know and everybody's on the conference call. That's what happens. And really it's, hey, your New York case isn't as good. My federal case, we got it really rigged here with the D.C. jury pool. You think it's mine, right? Right? No transcript. No transcript of this communication she had. I mean, this is a judge. Again, she comes from foreign communists. That's how she thinks. That's what we have. We have a foreign communist on the federal bench running this trial. People should be screaming at how insane that is. Even Murdoch, of all people, with his New York Post, had put an editorial saying, "This is kind of a problem." So they should just hammer. And I get everybody scared to ever point out anything they don't like about a judge because they think somebody's going to smack or whack him around. I've had cases where people say, don't be mean about the government. Don't be mean. Don't say anything that the judge won't like. You can't behave that way. If you believe what you're saying is honest and accurate and it's relevant to the proceedings and constitutional rights and liberties, it's your duty and obligation on behalf of your client to say so. Not stay silent, not stay mute, not because then ordinary people think lawyers are part of the problem. They think they're part of a corrupt insider system, that they're scared to point out the truth.
A lot of them do, Robert. I mean, a lot of people say they're just playing ball. It's good for everybody. They get to bill more, yada, yada. And I know you've said it before, but it's worth repeating, and I'm going to snip and clip this. What are the legal remedies to sanction that judge? Impeachment is the only one, and who has to start that process?
The House of Representatives. So that's really it. Only the House of Representatives and the Senate. Obviously, the Senate would never convict. But it's long overdue. These judges are weaponizing the power of the judiciary, and it's similar to what Samuel Chase did. Arguably, Samuel Chase was not as egregious. Back in the old days, Supreme Court justices actually presided over trials. They actually rode circuit. That's where the Circuit Court of Appeals comes from. And Chase went after his political enemies as a judge. And so one of the first ever impeachments was of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Chase. And I agree with some of the legal principles that said that what he didn't cross the line of impeachable conduct, but it was darn close. But you know what that did? That impeachment of Chase? Courts all of a sudden were like, oh, hold on, maybe I shouldn't weaponize my judicial power to take out my political adversaries. They can do that to Chase. Maybe I should be chasted in what I do, be a little more chaste in my behavior. And I think it's politically necessary and legally and constitutionally justified, because this is getting way out of hand, and you can tell people in D.C. are clueless. They don't recognize they're jeopardizing the entire future of the country. This indictment now goes way past Trump. You know, if they had Trump on like an actual murder charge, you know, an actual crime, maybe then it would be different. I still think then it should be stayed until after the election, so it doesn't interfere with the election under First Amendment selective prosecution and First Amendment free expression and speech principles. But at least then it'd be a different story. These are overtly, openly political cases brought by overtly, openly political judges to have lynching juries and lynching judges prevent the American people from electing who they want president of the United States. And that's unprecedented in our history. And if they are successful, they will wreck the country.
Some
And
might say
we should deport her back to Jamaica.
you're gonna get. Some people say, Robert, that's politically incorrect, and people have to
No,
appreciate. Like,
if she was from Britain, I'd say deport her back to Britain twice.
well, it is the corrupt history and nothing else to which you're referring. And you also go in there and you are not.
If you're not a commie, don't act like one.
Well, no, this is beyond the pale. I mean, it's beyond the pale, and if people don't understand that and they just want to tolerate it because it's their enemy this time around, you will be the enemy sooner than later, and it's preposterous.
Yeah, as the DeSantis is figuring out. Just a brief little topic: the county of L.A. is now looking at going after Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis for sending immigrants outside of the state on conspiracy to deprive people of civil rights and other things. You know, I mean, this is where, Jesse Kelly and the Steve Deace and some of these other people that want to piggyback off these indictments don't understand that they're next. I mean, the reason why everyone has to rally behind Trump is because if we don't, everybody's next.
No. I had on. I know you know. I'm not sure if you watched it. I had on Jenna Ellis, who illustrates why some attorneys might be reluctant to defend Trump. Because
her problem is she's such an idiot. She keeps going out and attacking Trump and Trump supporters. It's like, don't do it. It's like, here she is right now trying to raise funds for her defense. I think her prosecution is completely baseless. But it's like, okay, while you're trying to raise money from Trump and his supporters, don't go out and attack Trump and his supporters.
I understand the rationale. Her rationale is, I want to be principled. I don't want to look like I'm now kissing the butts of the people who I criticized before but like, no, there are ways. I think DeSantis
is just called dumb. I mean, God, she fell down the IQ chart and didn't come back up.
I had also on Justin Hart, who we had the discussion. I mean, there's vigorous DeSantis supporters, but I keep like, if they don't understand it, oh well, no, this is very serious. We can't have an indicted president, yada yada. He'll lose the general election. First of all, they're going to come after Abbott with bullshit charges like this. They're going to come after DeSantis. And if they don't come after DeSantis, a lot of people are going to say, well, that's because he's playing with the deep state, and they're not coming after him despite having the exact same grounds, maybe even better, which means he must be disloyal or playing ball with the deep state if they're not coming after him. So it's nuts. It's ridiculous. Everyone should appreciate it, understand it, and.
Well, I mean, speaking of weaponized political.
Oh
nonsense,
yeah. Oh, January 6th was Robert. Okay.
Proud Boys. Yeah.
Proud Boys. I'm going to forget their names. It was Enrique. Well,
Joe Biggs was one of the main ones.
What did he get? One of them got 13. One of them got 17 years. Like it's doom pilling to me because they may be bad people. I don't know them personally. The risk is coming out and saying it's unjust what's being done to the Proud Boys members. Everybody thinks they're a terrorist organization, so you could just justify whatever the hell you want. They might not be babysitting kids or walking dogs. This is bullshit. 13 years for one, 17 years for another. Terrorist enhancements because they were rattling the barricades in a case that had been infiltrated by the FBI well before, so that they knew about this seditious conspiracy, both of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, and yet claimed to be unaware of what was going to happen on January 6th. Not enough police at the Capitol. the sentences are preposterous, to the point where any criticism of Putin and what he does to journalists and political adversaries in Russia are laughably lacking self-insight. How do you make sense of the sentences?
It's three different things. One, it's these Federalist Society judges. This was a Trump appointee. And a bunch of them are this way. They're a stout. You cut them and they bleed government blue. They almost all come from corporate and government backgrounds. They're not, don't appoint judges that come from that background. As a general rule, you'll get bad judges. More often than not. Doesn't mean you won't get some good ones, but more often than not, you get bad judges who see the world from an authoritarian perspective. And the only authoritarianism you're disagreeing with is whether it should be done on behalf of the church or on behalf of the church of the woke. That's kind of it. But either way, they love the state and the all power of the state. Sometimes they'll only stand up against it if it means standing up for the church or the corporations, but often not for the individual. And so that's part one, another representation of that issue. Part number two is how I said from the beginning, every single January 6th defendant should move to transfer venue or a different judicial assignment on grounds that the judges themselves in the District of Columbia could not be impartial. They've made so many statements, so clear of their bias in these sentencing proceedings that they took personally what took place on January 6th. That means as a judge, you have no business being in the case. When you have a personal interest or you take it personally, if you were the actual victim of a crime, should you be presiding as a judge in a case? Of course not.
You'd want to.
Yeah, maybe you want to, but you have no business doing so. And you have a constitutional right to an impartial judge. These judges could not, I said from day one, didn't matter which party appointed them, which candidate appointed them, these judges could not be impartial in January 6 cases because that whole town took it personally. And then two other points. Problem number three is this judge made ludicrous rulings about how it's totally okay that during BLM, people will literally attack the White House hoping to get to President Trump, and none of them were prosecuted. Many of them the government wrote checks to instead, tried to burn down a church, attacked, remember Senator Paul and others were physically attacked while walking in the street. None of them are even prosecuted. And this judge says, oh, but that's totally different. That wasn't the holy day of January 6th. What? There's nothing holy about January 6th, you idiot.
Didn't you hear Kamala Harris? It will live in infamy. 9/11, Pearl Harbor. I forget the other one that she absolutely desecrated by comparing it. It's...
I think we should have a general rule. No people from Jamaica can hold office in America. God bless you, but there's something about they come from Jamaica.
Robert, I think it's the Canadian influence. I think
it's the pot. They don't come from the Bob Marley side. They come from the other whack job side, the authoritarian. Almost all Kamala Harris, slave owners. They either come from commies or slave owners. It seems the ones that get power here in America. And then the last problem is a problem that the right has often been guilty of. In fact, the right often initiated, and the left used to know was a problem, and now they love and celebrate as they watch their political opponents sent to prison, which is terrorism laws are stupid laws. They've always been stupid laws. I haven't changed my opinion in 20 years on this. I was against the Patriot Act from day one of only a few people that were, sadly. Good Russ Feingold, the senator from Wisconsin, was willing to stand up against it, but nobody else was pretty much. And the reason is we already have criminal laws. If you money launder, you can be convicted of money laundering. If you commit violence, you can be convicted of violence. We don't need to put political labels on it. As soon as we start putting political labels, that's why I'm against people say, let's call the cartels a terrorist group. Dumb idea. Dumb. Once you start sticking political labels on things like hate crimes or anything else.
I was just about to say, like, you put, all crime is hate. All crime is illegal. You're going to make a terrorist-related crime more illegal and harsher sentences?
Why?
It doesn't
because
make
now
sense.
You're going to get it. You're basically making them thought crimes. You're saying, we don't object to the fact that you committed a violent crime. We object to the thought you had at the time you committed it. I'm just opposed to that altogether. And so for example, you can criminalize intimidation. You can criminalize harassment. That's how the criminal laws should work. Don't stick a political label like terrorism on it, because as soon as you do, all of a sudden the Constitution goes out the door, basic rights and remedies go out the door, and all of a sudden somebody that just shows up on January 6th is now a terrorist and can go to prison for a ridiculous sentence as these people were.
Yeah, no, it's very much analogous, and I say not analogous because they're not analogous, but rather one followed the other, as to what happened in Canada, where you have the insurrectionists of Ottawa standing trial in front of these judges who consider this to have been an occupation of their sanctity of the Ottawa, capital city. I just can't get over it because it works so slowly. You demonize the Proud Boys, you make them into like a militia organization so that you can then slap on these terroristic charges to acts which in of themselves are, I just won't say innocuous.
It's like gang laws, by the way. I'm against gang laws for the same stupid reason. We got conspiracy laws on the books. You got a conspiracy, prove a conspiracy. Don't put the word gang on it, and magically you can just eviscerate a bunch of laws.
Yeah, no, it's especially when you look at it, the terrorist enhancements for what they did. It's not.
Oh, he
shook a fence.
Shook a fence.
Oh,
He shook a fence.
17 years, and you had the Kavanaugh hearings, which were interfered with. You had January 2017. You had BLM riots where they were literally Molotov cocktailing police officers. What did they get, Robert? What are those two Molotov cocktail lawyers?
A year.
It's
in and out. Low security, in and out, no problem.
It's doom pilling because I don't understand how people don't see it.
It's a disgrace, and it's another example where I said early on you had to put these judges on notice. That you put them on notice because either one of three things will happen: the conscientious judge will recognize it and try to adjust for it, or assign a different court from outside D.C. to handle it. A corrupt judge will just prove how prejudiced he is because he'll be dumb enough to retaliate against you for it. And then the third option is it will at least deter them, because at least the ones that are partially reflective or at least concerned with the appearance of their actions will be like, well, let me double check and make sure this doesn't look too bad, doesn't look too extreme. And you almost always invariably improve your chances of a better outcome when you're honest about what you think, whether a court can be fair or not, than if you hide it from the whole world.
Robert, I was going to say, I'm drinking a gin, which is not from Chattanooga, but it's imported by Keeper's Quest Inc., Chattanooga, Tennessee. For a second, I was like, oh, this is delicious. It came from Chattanooga, but it comes from Scotland, but imported by Chattanooga Company. Robert, I've forgotten to do the Rumble Rants the entire show. Let me catch up on these before we get into the next subject, which is going to be good. Taking a deep breath. We got Lil, what does that say? Lil Cowie. Robert, loved your interview with Don Jr. Thank you. Check it out. It's amazing. Ukraine 2022 is Poland 1938. Mandatory act carry. Nice to see you again. Be awake, not woke. I don't get to watch as often as I'd like, but damn, I love Barnes. We all know, I'm not sure what that means, but I'm not. Oh, riggers. Is it rigging election? Okay. Is it racist? And Al Sharpton is the biggest sellout there for the black community. Shulaine says, Robert, do you own any Donegal tweed? What is that?
It's a reference to a certain kind of tweed, I presume.
Okay. P. Moyer says, Viva, could you please normalize the audio? Robert is significantly louder than you. It's beginning to hurt. Well, that might be very old of a super Rumble Rant. My brother and I were serving during the Koof nonsense. Is there a chance we can rein in this fight and push for change for how military members are tried? Morit Flyer says, does the law include pharmacies that will not fulfill ivermectin prescriptions? Robert, that's a good question.
I mean, this only impacts the FDA part, but that had a lot of derivative impact.
All right. And we got, or identifies as a woman is the operative. The sorority obviously had a definition of what a woman is, but did not specify said definition within their bylaws. And look at the colors matching perfectly with the DeSantis opening video and that. Okay, I think we got them. Oh, Robert, this next one, hold on, what was it? It was the Kansas newspaper raid. Okay, I think I know why this is very relevant. This was a journalist. You're going to have to fill in the names because they were all new to me. I had never heard, I had briefly heard of the story. But this was a journalist who got raided by the, I want to say Missouri? Where was it?
It's the continued, what happens when the rule of law breaks down and we allow the complete, open, brazen, political, partisan weaponization of the criminal justice process. What does that look like? Now, that has happened throughout America to outsiders and dissidents. It has not happened at the scale it's happening now to President Trump. And the point some of us have made is that once you cross that Rubicon, and when you cross it like this, you go from being Caesar to being Caligula. Is the way I put it with the Duran. That's what we're seeing. And so what happened is you have this little town, Marion County, Kansas. There's an old dispute between a couple of restaurants. They bring in a new sheriff from Kansas City. They start hearing in little local newspaper a lot of questionable history of this new sheriff. Why maybe he left Kansas City to come to a little town. And so they start digging in. And then they find out at this event that they try to attend an event where there's a host for their local congressman for a local get-together. They basically get told to leave, though they're the local press. And they find out, they get tipped off that a person that's part of this restaurant that is connected to these political actors has a DUI and apparently probably shouldn't really have a liquor license for the restaurant. It's apparently in somebody else's name. It's not even apparent that this person can actually even legally drive, and yet somehow is being allowed to, and the corrupt sheriff is covering up for it. So they run this little old school, classic Americana, like something out of is it Frank Capra, the old school movie director, like Norman Rockwell kind of painting, kind of image. 98-year-old lady is the co-owner. And what happens? The sheriff goes and gets a search warrant to raid the personal home of everybody connected to the newspaper, including that of a 98-year-old woman. This is the famous video where she's going at these cops when they come in. The next day, she suffers from a heart attack and dies. What's happened is the newspaper is now fighting back. They filed a civil rights suit saying this was they violated every basic right. There's no basis to do so. It was political. Basically, what happened is the sheriff tried to pretend, or the police chief tried to pretend that the way they accessed the driving record of the individual was somehow illegal when it wasn't, and knew there wasn't a basis for that.
Well, they
lied to get the affidavit, lied and used the affidavit to seize and terrorize everybody. And really what he's doing is he's trying to cover up probably the investigation into his own corruption. But this is what happens when you allow political partisan weaponization of the criminal justice process.
Yeah, apparently they had gotten the driving record or whatever it was through known public means or through a public docket. They knew it, seized the cell phone, personal belongings of one of the journalists. I presume and took for granted and still take for granted these things happened all the time. We're just now getting wise to them, or at least they're getting put on blast because of the fact that they're happening right now to the president. So you get a
once you elevate up the scale, everybody's like, screw it. There's no limits anymore. And this is how, Alexander Macoris made the point of the Duran. He made the example of Rome, that when, problems with Rome was exposed in about, I think he put 140 BC, their reaction to the person exposing it was to destroy him. And that many Roman historians date that to the beginning of the end of the Roman Republic as a real republic. Because once you politically weaponize the legal system at scale, you can get away with it when you keep it limited to outsiders and dissidents. But once you do it at scale, you destroy any confidence or credibility in judicial integrity or independence, or the rule of law, or the criminal justice process, and everybody starts doing it. And then you have a chaotic, retributive-driven system that will fall apart, and it's only a matter of time. That's why the Trump case is so consequential. But this Kansas case is an example of the consequences that flow from this kind of dangerous, open, overt, political, partisan weaponization of the system.
I haven't seen the video, but I'm gonna pull this up now.
That's her. Yeah, that's the little lady. She died the next day.
Yep. Let's see what's going to happen here. It's going to play.
People always ask.
Oh,
me,
you're gonna get an ad.
what does being a
You're gonna get a little miniature
it.
Kevin Hart.
Well,
I know I call him miniature. He is miniature already.
He might be the only person that I am actually taller than. IRL. I'll find the video afterwards. Yeah. So it's a crazy story, but I think these things have happened all the time, and we might just now be paying attention to them because it's happening at the highest scale, and so we're looking down the ladder. But point well taken on the fall of Rome, because there seems to be a lot of analogies going on now. Do we go from this to pornography, Robert? Apparently, being required to upload a passport or whatever ID, government ID, in order to access pornography is violative of the First Amendment because it compels. There was a compelled speech aspect, which didn't have to do with the ID verification, but rather designating porn as addictive or having a sign that said porn was addictive on these websites. I don't know if we talked about it at the time. I think we did, but bottom line, they were asking or requiring ID verification to be uploaded. And if the government, that's a great way to get people to stop watching porn if they know the government's going to have video or photographic evidence that they submitted so they could watch porn online. Surely nothing bad can happen with that. It was also requiring the porn providers to make compelled speech that porn is addictive, it's bad for you, yada, yada, yada. Struck down. So they said that was an unlawful requirement, both in terms of verification, because there were other more appropriate means that were less intrusive, and the compelled speech aspect about it was also a bridge too far. That's the overview, but what do you think of this?
Yeah, and I get some people's adverse reaction to the headline, which is, age verification struck down as unconstitutional, and people thought that was crazy. But you dig into the case, as you note, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So what Texas did is pass a law that in the name of age verification, said anybody distributing online pornography to the people in Texas that could be appealing to minors that met their definition of obscenity, the Texas state law, had to get a verification of age and then had to give a warning after that to individuals. The problem is they used the same language that the Online Protection Act back in the 90s that got struck down by the Supreme Court did. And you're right, you dig into the law, and as the decision itself articulates, it appears the goal of this law is not what it pretended to be. That it pretended to be about, let's keep pornography out of the hands of minors, when as the decision pointed out, they ignored the far more easy and effective means to actually do that. Instead, as you note, what it really is an anti-porn law written by religious conservatives, principally in Texas. And it's written as, we just want to keep kids off. No, as you point out, you don't need people to give their personal ID before they access a porn site to make sure kids are off. That basically deters adults from accessing those sites and information. And that was also made clear with the compelled speech issue, because the warning was only issued to people who showed their adult verification. So they claimed the warning was for kids, but the warning was only applicable if the person wasn't a kid. So really it was conservatives have long opposed pornography, and there's many arguments in their favor, but on First Amendment grounds, adult pornography has, for the most part, been found constitutionally protected. Within a certain, you can limit time, means, place, etc. But the court pointed out this really wasn't a time, means, place limitation. This was a content-based limitation. And the issue was this. So, what the Supreme Court has previously said is that if you make it targeted to minors, like if you say any pornography, including adult pornography, has to have age verification, you're much safer grounds. When, on the other hand, you say any pornography that would be obscene, but only obscene to minors, what you're really trying to say is okay for adults, but not okay for minors. Then you're making a content-based distinction that makes the law have to fit strict scrutiny. Because of its likely implication on adult access. So they be honest with you, I can't believe the Texas legislature is, busy trying to impeach the good attorney general down there, didn't know that what they were doing. This is just an anti-porn law disguised as let's make sure kids don't access things. The other problem was all the people they excluded. They excluded search engines. They excluded foreign server hosts. They excluded social media companies. So a classic, corrupt Texas legislature in the sense that they want to give religious conservatives an anti-porn law, but they actually want to exclude all the means by which porn is actually distributed, including that minors and teenagers access, because that's their corporate benefactors, right? Please the church in rhetoric, and in substance, make sure we exclude and exempt the big corporations that really profit from all of this. But that made it under-inclusive from a First Amendment basis. It's like, hold on, if you really want to stop kids from accessing it, this should be your focus, not over here. And there's anonymity rights you have. That the Supreme Court has consistently made clear that you cannot condition your access to speech based on giving up your identification and sacrificing your anonymity for it. I have long argued that this should be a right to bring John Doe suits in many cases and public and be able to seal your name from public proceedings. That was going to be litigated in the Covington kids cases until Kentucky courts ran and hid instead. They pointed out you can have ISP to block adult content. You can use adult controls on kids' devices. You can have content filters. That there are multiple technological means that would be much more effective
and less invasive.
And much less invasive at preventing kids' access to adult pornography than the ones they've created. This was an anti-porn law that was meant to exempt all the big corporations, and consequently, it got struck down like, quite frankly, it should have got struck down.
Says the judge also found the law unconstitutionally compels speech by requiring adult sites to post health warnings they dispute, that pornography is addictive. I think most people would agree with that. Impairs mental development and increases the demand for prostitution, child exploitation, and child sexual abuse images. I mean, it's interesting. You might agree with that.
And again, that was only when going to adults. So I get it, but you can't basically compel people to give speech that they don't agree with unless you meet strict scrutiny. And that doesn't meet strict scrutiny by any definition.
And they said
so it's like I said, this was an anti-porn law meant to rally religious conservatives. They knew the courts would strike it down. They can use that to fundraise and volunteer raise and get everybody mad in the religious conservative community, while they were really protecting big corporations and the porn providers from the get-go.
And they said VPNs would also be a way of bypassing all of this, so it would be ineffective in addition to being intrusive and totally unconstitutional.
And the point the court also made is everybody knows the most effective way to keep kids from pornography. And the court made the point you need to distinguish between different ages, because there's very different things about what's obscene and inappropriate based on age. But it's parental supervision and encouraging, incentivizing, and giving more means for parents to be able to protect their children from that access should be the focus. If your real goal is to prevent young teenage boys primarily, but others, from accessing pornography, then your goal should be empowering parents. Not empowering this, because here's the other component. Mainly it was to deter people, but what it was also going to be able to do, it claimed not to be able to do this, but it's quite clear the law would have been able to actually achieve this, is gather massive information on your identity based on who's looking at what information. It would have been a massive blackmail file for the government.
Oh, they would never do that, Robert. All right. Fantastic. Interesting. The next one now, Robert, I'm brain farting as to what it is. First Amendment win against Austin.
Oh, well, it's about campaign fundraising. So what is the city of Austin keeps trying to pass rules? I've never supported campaign finance limitations of any kind. The reason is twofold. First, it's core speech. It's always been core speech. But secondly, it always favors insiders. I'll give you an example. When you limit, I'm not in favor of campaign limits on individual contributions. All that does is make you get, like, let's say you have the support of one rich dissenter. You can compete with anybody else if there are no campaign finance limits. But what if you instead have to get the support of at least 20% of rich people? Well, then they can effectively gatekeep who becomes a candidate, who doesn't. That's what campaign finance limits are all about. They're not about preventing quid pro quo corruption. That's garbage. The disclosure requirements fully satisfy any of that concern there. But to the degree it's even legitimate, I don't think it is legitimate. And there's 1,000 ways around it. So that's the last problem with all these laws is all it does is encourage the creative and the corrupt to be smart enough to figure out how they can get an edge over all the legitimate and the upright. So, but Austin can't help itself. It's a little mini commie-ville down there. And basically they keep passing laws that try to prohibit people from when they can fundraise. And this is also an Incumbent Protection Act, right? The incumbents will have no problem raising money in a tight time frame, but they know their opponents, not so lucky in all likelihood. And they don't want their opponents to be able to fundraise at key points of controversy, right? Let's say you do something the whole community doesn't like, but it's 18 months away from election day. Well, Austin was like, you can't raise money now. You have to wait until 1 year before election day. And correctly, the courts ruled, no, that's patently unconstitutional. You can only limit, the only constitutional constraint they've allowed is quid pro quo corruption. You have to show that the law is narrowly tailored to prevent quid pro quo corruption. The timing of when you raise money is not narrowly tailored to that at all. And so the court correctly found the city of Austin's laws violated First Amendment rights and freedoms. And it's a good decision that most courts have been pretty consistent on that. I would go even further. I think any individual I would much rather have unlimited individual campaign contributions than all the dark money PACs we have now. I mean, wouldn't you rather know, okay, let's say, Bobby Kennedy, Joe Biden, whoever it is, you want to know who's given 10 million, 20 million to back their campaign. Well, right now you can't know because they can do it through super PACs that don't often have to disclose who their donors are until much later, until it's inconsequential. Whereas those people would most often give directly to the candidate if they legally could. And then it has to be disclosed in a timely way. I far prefer that than all these dark money super PACs running around. These caps don't work. They're counterproductive. They remain counterproductive. Now, I'm for more public access, but that if you have the public airwaves, I think you have an obligation to give public access to candidates for office who meet the qualifications, and that should just be whether you qualify to get on the ballot in the first place, which has never been, overridden with too many candidates. That's a myth. So there's other ways to be effective to deal with the problem of too much money in politics, other than prohibiting First Amendment activity.
Robert, before we get to the next one, let me bring this up because we've got more Rumble rants, and some of them are funny. I saw one of them at least. All right, we got Randy Edward we got before. The Engaged Few said, a Democrat president pardoned a woman who detonated a bomb outside the Senate chambers in 1983. That person served less time than these January 6 protesters have been sentenced to serve. Robert, without reliving history, now I understand why presidents have pardoned violent criminals in the past, because there might have been so much political animus at the time of their trial. I know the underlying story here. Which one was that?
Well, there was also the Puerto Rican movement that tried to shoot up the house.
But what would have been the argument?
The Weather Underground? That may be Weather Underground.
Yeah, I think it was Weather Underground. What would be the arguments for why that was a politically motivated sentence in the first place?
A lot of those really weren't politically motivated. I mean, those people. I mean, granted, there are people that oppose, but the people that opposed them mostly wasn't because they say supported the war, is why they whacked them. There were some examples of that, but most of the time it was because of the horror of what they did.
All right, we got all the other lawyers are playing checkers while Barnes is playing chess. But Ginger Ninja 1776, who made the best chessboard ever. Everyone check out Fridays.
Did you crush your kid when you played him?
Destroyed him. No mercy on either of my kids. There will be tears, but they will learn. And then one day they're going to beat me and I'm going to retire from the game of chess. Dapper Dave 2021 says, wonder how many African-American members of Congress are millionaires. Where'd that go? The African-American community needs to investigate. Fiona is my bitch says, my retired military friend wouldn't take the jab and was denied an organ transplant. He has since perished, and we need an attorney recommendation. Any suggestions? Fiona, I would go to members of Viva Barnes Law and just let us know what state, and everyone can help out in terms of referral. Van Halo, what are the chances that Trump has evidence in his pocket on the stolen 2020 election that we have not yet heard? And how could a judge prevent this exculpatory evidence from the trial? Robert, Trump was supposed to declare that Monday morning press conference with a bunch of evidence and called it off. We don't know why. Do you have any knowledge?
I think it came out. I mean, his lawyer said no.
Okay. And we don't know what the information was. We just know that he said not doing it. All right. Show us your porn papers, Mr. Fry. Or Fry says, my real name. My issue with porn is not conceptual for porn itself. It is to avoid the incidents where you have revenge porn and then it's on the internet forever and you have Twitter not doing things to take it down. Porn sex among consenting adults. I mean, who's anyone to say no? The issue is when it's not proper. porn is not speech, at the risk of getting into the debate with the Gad crowd.
I understand people feel that way. The Supreme Court has said it is.
Yeah, and then you become the Jew-ish Zionist, Robert.
Elijah Schaefer thinks I am Jewish.
Well, I heard. I'll read these two, and then I'll say it. Donations is pure speech and shouldn't be limited. Hit. I found something Barnes and Little Benji agree on, and then continued reminder to have a great guest to. Continued reminder to have a guest to show the lies and data of climate change. In the works. Don't worry. There are facts and data showing it's just like COVID. Tony Heller. Fuck the world. Robert, someone said, you don't have to be a Jew to be Jew-ish, and bada bing, bada tis. But my goodness, the ADL has done more to exacerbate anti-Semitic sentiment than to combat it, which leads me to believe that might be grift in the true sense of the word, creating
maybe
drama.
you get into the ADL and you rip the mask off and it's a little baby Hitler in there.
It could be more innocuous than a baby Hitler. Yeah, the porn. Porn is speech, people. Whether you like it or not, like I got so attacked for saying that. Like I thought I misunderstood the Supreme Court. You may not like it. It's speech. It's protected speech to the extent it's not obscene. And Gab does not only prohibit obscene content, it prohibits porn because nobody wants to come to these sites and see porn. Unless you're on Twitter and you're into some nasty stuff. My God, Twitter has some horrible stuff. Robert, what's the next one? First Amendment win against Austin. We did that one. I skipped one. Free speech, COVID on campus.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
So this is the University of Southern Maine. And what happened is a professor of marketing complained about the school's rules. Maine went full commie during COVID. And so they complained about the vaccine mandates and the mask mandates and the other COVID policies. And so they fired her. And so she sued. She said this is First Amendment retaliation, violation of free speech rights. And they said, no, we thought you were doing it in your capacity as an employee. And this is the way they opt out of, escape, and evade liability is government employers will say, no, we fired you because you're doing this as an employee rather than as a private citizen. And the key is you have to show protected conduct and adverse action and causation. It's only protected if you're doing it on a matter of public concern as a private citizen. Now, the mere fact that there may be an overlap that you may have done it at your job to your supervisor concerning a matter of work does not necessarily mean it could not be public speech about that's equivalent to a private citizen. And so the court was able to effectively distinguish between those and say that, no, this was a matter of hot public debate. And this is very analogous to a private citizen speaking about a matter of public concern. And it goes back to agency principles. It's like, unless what you said had to be said as part of your job, then it should not be considered necessarily employee speech rather than private citizen speech. Well, employee speech, not protected. Private citizen speech is protected. And it did a good job of using those agency principles to distinguish that this wasn't, as her professor of marketing, it was not required as part of her job to communicate about these policies, even if these policies were impacting her job. And so the judge denied a motion to dismiss on those grounds. Now, he gave qualified immunity because he said the poor university professors and or supervisors and administrators couldn't possibly know this violated the First Amendment. Another reason why qualified immunity is a crock. But at least she gets to go forward on her suit for reinstatement, and that's good on these COVID speech codes.
But who the hell wants to get reinstated at an institution that did that to you in the first place? So there's only one remedy.
Well, reinstatement effectively gives you your job back, and if they can't give you reinstatement, then they have to give you future pay and the disparity between what you could make and what they would have paid you, which can be financially beneficial.
Okay, very interesting. Robert, what's next on the list?
So we have a list of other these, and some of these we'll get to here. Some we'll get to special on locals. We got some of these are added bonus topics. Medicaid abortion. That's probably a good one for the next one. The Trusted News Initiative case, Children's Health Defense and Robert Kennedy gets a big boost from a state government. The FDA loses on vapes. Avenatti loses again. A COVID eviction case, moratorium case, went to the Ninth Circuit. in a case of Secret Service bribery.
So hold on. I just want to check one thing. When do we go over to Rumble now? Or not to Rumble, to locals. For the remainder stuff, we're at 2 hours. Do we want to do two more subjects here and then we'll go over to locals?
Yeah.
Okay. Pick
Actually, one last one that will be exclusive for the. Oh, there's a copyright issue that we'll talk about briefly. But the one exclusive one for the locals community is why Tyson Foods is going to lose the vaccine mandate case. Oh, and I'm sorry. There is one more we should discuss broadly: the right to petition against vaccine mandates about being fired related to speech related to vaccine.
Is that the one where it was an at-will employee who complained about government policy as relates to the vaccine mandates, gets fired, and then they say, no, we're firing you for your speech because it's like contrary to what we want at the place of employment, and they say I was responding to government officials and you fired me for political discourse, disagreement with political stuff that had nothing to do with like violating any sort of employment. That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so flesh that out, Robert. It's an at-will employment, which typically means we can fire you when we want, no excuses. This was someone complaining about vaccine policy to elected officials. I forget the state now. What state was it?
Greatest state in the union.
That would be. Let me just Google that real quick. Robert, I don't know. I'm Canadian.
Tennessee.
Okay. So this was an employee who's complaining about Tennessee government officials and their COVID policy. Writes not an op-ed, but like a letter to emails, and then gets fired. And they say, we get to fire you. It's at-will employment, and you pissed us off. And she says, no, this was nothing to do with my employment. It was First Amendment exercise, and no. And she won, Robert. She succeeded.
Yes, before the Tennessee higher courts.
Okay.
So it's about how the right to petition, which is at core of what they're trying to criminalize in all of the Trump cases, really, but especially the prosecutions in state case in Georgia and the federal case in D.C. And Tennessee has its own version of the right to petition in the Tennessee state constitution. And almost all states have a public policy discharge exception to the at-will principles of wrongful discharge. So, some states only, or some jurisdictions only allow someone to be fired for cause. Most of America allows you to be fired, as you know, at will for any reason you so fit. But even in those at-will states, you can't fire someone for in ways.
Protected reasons.
Exactly. And the protected reasons sometimes include state and federal law involving discrimination, but also in the context is certain constitutional rights. If you're exercising your constitutional rights and they fire you for that reason, in certain instances, not in all instances, but in certain instances, they don't allow the firing to be done. It's a wrongful discharge in violation of public policy, as it's called. And so the question is firing someone for petitioning the government a wrongful discharge in violation of public policy? And credit to the Tennessee courts, they said absolutely it is. So the right to petition has been around for forever, one of the foundational rights in Tennessee, one of the founding rights of America. And an employer that fires someone just because they use their corporate employer emails for the purposes of communicating to the government agency did not make it anything less than petitioning the government for redress of grievance. And you firing them is against the public policy of the state at such a level that we recognize it as wrongful discharge. So this was I think she was employed in Chattanooga at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And Blue Cross wrongfully fired her for speaking out against the vaccine mandates. And because she spoke out against it to a state legislator, is why it was protected and the right to petition now enforced. It's part of the expanding creative ways you can protect yourself from wrongful action in the employment context concerning vaccine mandates, is if they did it as punishment for you petitioning the government for redress of grievances.
And again, the question is going to be, who the hell wants to go back to that employment afterwards? It's a Pyrrhic victory, Robert. She's not going to go back want to work for that place. Like, what are they going to? What's the solution?
Well,
practically,
normally the legal remedy is always reinstatement, or in lieu thereof, they have to pay you the gap between what you can make now and what you would have made there.
Okay, Robert, what do we have? So we've got like maybe 5 quick topics. We've got
We got Medicaid abortion, Trusted News Initiative, FDA vapes, Avenatti, COVID eviction, Secret Service bribery, when lyrics are too common to be copyrighted, Burger King Whopper being too small, Giuliani DC civil case, and Tyson's going to lose the vaccine mandate case.
Okay, let's do 2 quick ones, and then we're going to end it and then go over to locals. The Burger King burgers are too small. Robert, call me insensitive. Call me someone who has too much faith in mankind. Anybody who believes the pictures deserves to get duped. I don't care that the pictures make the burgers look good, delicious, fresh, tomatoes, whatever. But then again, I say that not knowing or not fully appreciating what U.S. law on the subject might be. The allegations are Burger King and a number of other food chains make the burgers look bigger. The meat patties are overflowing on the buns. The tomatoes are delicious. They're not as big. They come up like dried, shriveled, like I was going to make a dirty joke. Dried, shriveled nothingness that you get. And I say, okay, well, that's to be expected. I'm not expecting a prime rib from a Wendy's. Some people are. They say the ads are misleading, et cetera, et cetera. What is the actual law? And how do you think it's going to go down in terms of misleading advertising? It's supposed to be bigger than it is right now because of the pictures.
Yeah, so I mean, what it is it's more of there's been a lot of creative class actions brought against the tendency of big food, big agriculture, big pharma, in various respects, to lie to people about the quality, but particularly big food, the quality of their food. But in this context, it's about, it's from the movie Falling Down, Michael Douglas, where he's sitting there with a burger and he's like, look, does this look like this? Does that look like the picture up there? Does that? And that's basically Burger King. It was either Burger King or Wendy's that was did the where's the beef joke, 35 years, almost 40 years ago. And here we are, Burger King still, where's the beef? And so it's a legitimate action. The court allowed the case to proceed. It's like, there's a real disparity between how big the beef looks like and how it actually shows up.
I want, if nobody knows this, people, this is going to be a throwback. Hold on, I got to turn the volume down. This is going to be a throwback. If nobody's seen this, you will go Google, where's the beef? I remember when she died, Robert. Hold on.
Okay, guys, how are we going to pull off this moon
Skip
landing?
an ad. Who gets ads anymore?
It certainly is a big bun.
It's a very big bun.
Big fluffy bun.
It's a very big fluffy bun.
Where's the beef?
Some hamburger places give you a lot less beef on a lot of bun.
Where's the beef?
At Wendy's, we serve a hamburger we modestly call a single. And Wendy's single has more beef than the Whopper or Big Mac. At Wendy's, you get more beef and less bun.
Hey, where's the beef? I don't think there's anybody back there.
You want something better. You're Wendy's kind of people.
Commercials used to be better, Robert.
And that became famous because Walter Mondale used it in the 1984 Democratic primary debates to make fun of Gary Hart that killed Gary Hart's primary campaign that session. Now, in 1988, he decided to cheat on a boat that was like named something terrible that finally ended his presidential aspirations. But yeah, it still keeps coming back. And I was also laughing at one of the memes in our locals chat, which has Fannie Willis and Governor Kemp hooked up on an OnlyFans, which is appropriate. If anybody had any doubts of how corrupt the Attorney General in Georgia is and the governor in Georgia is, the Attorney General is legally obligated to appear in the federal removal proceedings, and to my knowledge, still has not, either in Mark Meadows' case or in Jeffrey Clark's case, and is not doing his job and has fallen asleep at the wheel and is part of the same corrupt conspiracy the Georgia Republican establishment has been in to cover up the corruption of the 2020 election ever since. And the governor came out and said not only would he oppose any special legislative session to inquire into the conduct of the district attorney, Fannie Willis, down there, but he complimented her and said there was nothing wrong with what she was doing effectively, which is insane. This guy, and Kemp, you're never going to be president. You're a has-been. You're a nobody. You always were. You snuck in 2022 because people just voted yes with Republican incumbent, like a lot of idiots in Georgia did, quite frankly. It shows what a disgrace the Republican political establishment is that happened. As Trump pointed out, by the way, Kemp makes that statement not long after he and DeSantis got together for a little chat for those people that are still disimping for DeSantis, he is neck deep in these efforts to profit from the weaponization of the criminal investigation and targeting of Trump. And if Steve Deace and the rest of them had any honor, they would recognize that they don't pretend you're doing what you're doing because you're so high integrity when you're complicit in supporting the weaponization of the legal system against the elected president that could lead to the destruction of American constitutional democracy. Every day DeSantis keeps campaigning is a day he encourages, rewards, welcomes, and incentivizes this political legal weaponization of our justice system. He's proven himself unworthy of any higher office. And those that continue to disimp for him are losing credibility at every minute of every day as this keeps going on.
I'm going to try to remain neutral, Robert. What I will do to lighten the mood, has nobody done this yet? Has nobody done this?
I can't afford a taxi. Get a job. Arnold, that's the whole idea in the first place. Willis needs a job. You get the picture? I'm unemployed. Then why don't you collect unemployment insurance? Arnold, to collect unemployment, you gotta not be working at what you're working at before you stop working. What you talking about, Willis?
Robert, how has nobody used that for Fannie Willis in terms of the incredulity of the indictment? I may have just started a.
You're right. That I was wondering where that was going, but I just figured that out.
What you talking about, Willis? Like Fannie Willis. That sounds everyone's going with Fannie because Fannie means butt. I'm going with Willis. What you talking about, Willis? Robert, what do we do? I think we do it now.
We could cover. Maybe let's see. We could do COVID eviction cases, and then we'll save the rest for the.
So the COVID eviction cases. This goes back to the moratorium of the government coming in and unilaterally amending the lease agreements between tenants and landlords.
By the way, they're thinking about doing again. So the reason why I'm tracking all these cases is what Alex Jones reported a couple of weeks ago has now been reported by many other places, including vendor contracts being circulated amongst federal government potential contractors. And you can see the reason. The reason isn't just to steal the 2024 election again by establishing new lockdown-type rules that allow a mass flooding of mail-in voting that facilitates voter fraud and election fraud. But it's also, right now, student loan debt's about to become due. Everybody's eviction moratoriums are pretty much over. And all of a sudden, there's sudden spikes in homelessness and a lot of other issues related to it. The working class millennials are massively turning against Biden. You see it in all the TikTok videos that have only been enhanced by making, by Trump's iconic mugshot, which, if you want the coolest, best T-shirt, shirt, mug out there, you can get your own mug shot. You can get your own shot glass of the Trump mug.
Keep going, Robert. Keep going.
Yeah,
Hold on.
It's simple. It's right at VivaFry.com. We got Wanted for President. I ordered all three. I called it the trilogy. Instead of trilogy, the trilogy. And so I got all three coming this week. I got the coffee cup. I got the mug shot. I got the shirt. I ordered a couple of the shirts. So Wanted for President with that great iconic President Trump image. And it'll be my future mugshot glass I'm going to have in here, so we can celebrate appropriately and properly. But so these cases are relevant for that because they're going to try to sneak it back in. Because how do you win those millennials back?
Give them money.
You suspend student loans again because of another pandemic threat. You reissue eviction moratoriums. You start sending stimmy checks out. Start printing. The printer goes brr, as they like to say, so that you get them, at home playing games and pretending to be on the stock market, and that's the temptation. But someone was litigating under the Contracts Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which used to be meaningfully enforced in America. Based Judge Stickman would have reinstated it against the COVID lockdowns, but the Supreme Court kind of eviscerated a lot of it during the New Deal era. And in part, that was because they were misapplying it in certain contexts, but they went way too far in the other direction. But there still is a contract clause, contrary to what some lefties think. So the Constitution says you can't impair contracts. And the way that's now interpreted is it if there's a substantial interference with a contractual right that was created prior to the action of the government that's unreasonable. So you got to prove all three. But the courts were denying anybody standing unless you went through all these procedural or technical components that were improbable to go through in the first place. So they were using standing like they always do to close the court doors to clients, to customers, to patients, to plaintiffs they don't like. And so that's what was happening. The Ninth Circuit, to its credit, overturned. Said clearly somebody has standing. They have to go through all these things. If they were a landlord and all of a sudden they have contractual remedies limited, however and whatever means they're limited, that's a contracts clause claim. Whether it's reasonable or not, whether it's substantial or not, is for discovery and trial, not for dismissal. And so that was a very good ruling because now that's going to go back and be litigated. And many of these cases are being litigated across the country. They try to deny any takings remedy, but at least they're allowing some of the contracts clause cases to go forward because it's critical to deter this from happening again. Just like litigating the mask mandates is critical to continue to go on. I'm looking at another mask case potentially because they want to bring all this crap back all over again.
I still think the takings argument were sound and legally justified.
They absolutely were. And notably, the Supreme Court never ruled on it. So there's still a chance Supreme Court someday will get that right.
Now, Robert, we are going to locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. But for those who are watching this in replay on YouTube, get your damn mug.
VivaFry.com.
It's so good. I'm not sharing the link to the actual sub link of the thing. VivaFry.com. You can get above average, all of the merch. It's beautiful. And it's the best thing ever. It's a piece of history. When the aliens come in 1,000 years and are like, what the hell is this mug with this guy's face on? They're gonna know. Robert, Viva Barnes Law on locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Here's the link. We're gonna go finish this up there.
Yep. All $5 tip questions we will answer. So you hop in there now and get them in there quick. There's still time.
Holy crap. Well, we're going to start with that because I don't know anything about I have perfectly strategically left the only subjects I know nothing about.
And we'll talk about Medicaid. They're trying to force, the ACLU is trying to force states to pay for abortions. We'll talk about the Trusted News Initiative. This is the censorship misinformation campaign by big media in collusion with big tech. Big government state actor got involved this week. FDA getting nailed on vapes. Michael Avenatti losing. That's always a nice story.
Well, he's never winning again, but he's
when
done.
Lyrics are too common to be copyrighted. Giuliani's DC default. And why Tyson Foods is going to lose in the vaccine mandate case in Tennessee.
For those of you who don't know, Barnes does not like Tyson Foods. So we are ending.
And it has nothing to do with it. Sometimes you eat their chicken and you start to feel really, you always want to throw up and vomit. I just hear that a lot. I hear people say, oh my goodness, whenever I do, I don't want to eat that. I might die.
We are ending on Rumble, and we are going to vivabarneslaw.locals.com in 5, 4, 3, 2. I think I did it already. Damn it. It's a 1. We're done. We're there. Robert, I'm going to go back to I'm going to go do all the tips. I'm going to hold a long breath. Scroll up, load messages. Okay. Bill Brown and Templeton seem to be number 1. Look at that pig's face. He's got teeth that are coming out of his mouth. By the way, they all say pig farmers are nice, but pigs eat human bodies. So you might all want to think about that. That's Bill Brown, $5. Beautiful pictures of Templeton. Got another one, Templeton. We've got Webster, 1994, $25 says your shop is not available in Australia.
Yeah, you got to fix
shit.
That.
Hold on one second. Let me screen grab that and send it to our guy, and we'll fix that. Steve Britton, $5 says, is there not a provision which gives a sitting president a free pass in the primaries? Has the sitting president ever been primaried? Robert, good question. I have no idea.
If you mean getting challenged, there's plenty of examples of that. The primaries haven't been around for forever. There were only a few primaries, honestly, up until 1976, 1980. But if you mean getting indicted, that's never happened before.
Well, how about
the First Amendment prohibits it?
How about losing? How about an incumbent losing on a primary?
There were challenges though through the convention process to many incumbents prior to primaries even coming about. And in terms of since primaries, you've had challenges in Well, 1912, yeah, 1912, you had primary challenges they're at least brought in some states. You had primary challenges brought in 1948, but that was mostly at the convention.
But challenges does not mean the challenger beating the incumbent. It just means
Correct. So
challenge.
what has usually happened is the incumbent is either won, but if they get seriously challenged, they almost always lose the general election. And then
I see.
other challengers other incumbents have stepped down. LBJ, 1968, famously stepped down rather than letting Robert Kennedy beat him. Harry Truman, 1952, stepped down rather than let Estes Kefauver beat him. So there have been examples of that in the past.
All right, we got Denise Ann 2, $5 says, may I share a link to GiveSendGo to help me raise money to replace 2 car windows that someone shattered the other night? I only have liability insurance and it does not cover window repair. Share it and let us know. That's Denise Ann. That's $5. The Historic Life, $5 says, Robert, could you bundle all the late night talk show hosts that gave medical advice and sue under a market share liability theory? It worked for pharmaceuticals. Why not for Stephen Colbert?
Well, actually, Paul Watson just recently did so. And in one of his most recent, 10-minute little videos that he does, he showed all of how much they promoted the vaccine.
It was egregious, over the top, through the roof. Brulaham says, to be fair, Robert, COVID was familiar with crime statistics. It knew to avoid BLM protests. Okay, that's funny. I was trying to find the video of Theresa Tam from Canada saying, if you're going to go to a protest, just don't shout. Just, bang stuff together like a bunch of, hacks. Barnes' next lawsuit, U.S. versus Colbert, Exhibit A, Colbert holding vaccines. My God, you remember that thing?
Yep, that vaccine musical.
Oh my God. G. Pumakis, that's G. Pumakis or G. Pumakis, $10. GBTC is the most important financial event since coming off the gold standard. GBTC. What does that mean?
I'm not sure what that reference is.
Maybe it has to be Bitcoin. It has to be BTC.
Or is it a gold-backed currency, maybe?
Gold-backed. Oh, okay. I'll Google that in a second. 42, you're getting it because I started reading. It's $3, not $5. When I was fired, they tried to say it was mutual, then brought up a specific behavior discussing COVID in the company's Slack channel. Can I sue for wrongful termination when I was providing data from the FDA and correctly saying the bivalent vaccine?
If it was a state employer.
Okay. State employer is the crux. That's the crux.
You can sue a private employer if you are petitioning the government. But you can only sue, but otherwise you can only sue a state employer for a direct First Amendment violation.
And we got Sobi1 Kenobi. First time is $5. Long-time listener, first time live. Sorry, but not family first. Dude, when my kids start busting down the door, it says bedtime and eat and go to bed. I know how that feels. Dark Raven 8, $5. I think they're trying to bring back emergency status so they can pause student loan payments again. It's too early to be about 2024. Excuse me. They know loan payments will kill them and economy.
Yeah, but what they're worried about is 2024 when it comes to the economy. Otherwise, they could care less about the economy.
Robert, I can't ask the question, but I can read the $10 super chat from G. Pumakis. Is Don Jr. going to push his dad to bring you on board, Robert? I'll answer it. I'll answer it for you, Robert. His dad knows now. Nobody can say his dad does not know. Everybody knew.
And Trump has made the point of he's talking about the disqualification. He's talked about other stuff right after we would talk about it. Mm-hmm. So, he's tuned in. It's just his lawyers that are not doing it.
And the wise answer is no comment, but it's undeniable now that former President Trump, is very much familiar with Robert Burns.
Oh, yeah, and familiar with, he's my former client. But there are people in Trump world who watch the show on a regular basis.
Pam Walker, David, will you please? Oh, geez, Midwinter's Day, Michigan Winter's Day. I remember you won. We're going to do that this week. David, will you please clip out the rant from Robert so we can share it? Thank you. I am going to work on getting the clips out better and in better edited format next week, guaranteed. Junkman 611, $5. Is Abe Hamadeh entitled to a speedy trial in regards to his election results? How do we stop these tactics of judicial?
That's generally, it depends on the state. Some states have a civil analog to speedy trial provisions, but That judge was already supposed to have issued a ruling that he published within. It's already passed, and it's just are the higher courts going to do anything about this judge refusing to make it a final decision?
I had a case where I made a motion for disqualification of attorneys, even though it's unpopular. The judge took over 6 months, which is more than the time they're legally required to render a decision, to dismiss it. So 6+ months, 8 months, dismissed, carry on with the lawsuit after 8-month delays. Chief Goose, $5, says, caught Bill Maher on Rogan yesterday. He is so close to understanding the problem with woke people and all that. He just cannot shake the media narrative of Trump is a criminal. Robert, you need to get on his show and school him up on.
Mark Robert was briefly once on Bill Maher's show, but because he got more laughs than Bill Maher never let him back.
We got Mighty Pay. Robert, the overlords in corporate healthcare are controlling everything providers do with patients. My company told us not to write any exemptions for vaxes or masks. What can healthcare providers do to push back against the corporate takeover?
I mean, really, it's in some cases they're improperly giving medical advice, and I think they can be held legally liable for the people that suffered consequences from that. I think that's what we're looking at pursuing, the option of.
That would be a godsend. Barnes is an American treasure and a voice we need, from Sobi-Wan Kenobi. Steve Britton, $5, says, Rome didn't fall in a day either. No, it took several hundred years, and the fall of Rome, and we got Pasha Moyer. That actually looks like Montreal in fall, but that's a meme. All right. Merchant Marine. The destruction of our courts is being done in an attempt to make our government fail. Quote, courts and mobs must execute the penalties of the law, the preservation of public order, the discussion, the integrity of the courts, and the orderly administration of justice must continue forever, the rock of safety upon which our government surely rests. President William McKinley. In 2A Bruin goes back to the history of the constitutional. Isn't it really the same for trans women, trans men? Certainly there's no history besides biological understanding of what a woman is. After all, only men have the parts to potentially produce sperm, and only women have the ovaries to produce. Robert?
Yeah, well, and that's what Judge Lagoa made as part of her argument affirming the Alabama state law limiting trans treatments.
There was a picture of Bill Brown's Templeton. He's beautiful. Do you agree with allowing unlimited contributions from individuals, but stop the PAC and corporate contributions?
I wouldn't stop any contributions because that just creates problems. I think it does circumvent, it constricts speech and just encourages more corrupt actors to get away with questionable behavior. But by doing unlimited contributions, you channel it in a more transparent manner.
I'm choking on the olives that were left in that martini. That was from Dana J. Oliver. Mandalici, $10, says, have you seen the investigation into the Georgia DA's Fannie political contributions from active donations that are forged? It is real and needs further investigation.
I saw the headline, but don't know any further detail.
Okay, I'm going to screen grab that and see where that goes afterwards. We've got BT Spyglass, $5. Have you ever looked at the Michigan suit which ruled the state was guilty for not protecting students from climate change?
I got to find that suit and take a look at it.
Bill Brown, $5. I always say the real Maine doesn't start until Wiscasset. South of there is just North Massholes. Okay, dude, I don't know what that means, but I'll tell you one thing.
It means Massachusetts combined with something else.
Did you see the video of the neo-Nazi protesters in Florida, Robert? I don't know if you saw that.
Yes.
Apparently,
somebody traced them, and they're like Democratic activists a year or two ago.
And apparently, they have a training ground in Massachusetts, or I think it's Maine, not Massachusetts. Jedi Bower, 1971. Thank you for the sanity check every Sunday night, or every Sunday, gents. Thank you. The Quarter Native. That's $2. I started reading. They killed Kemp's daughter's boyfriend. I'm not surprised he's towing the party line. Robert, have you heard anything about that?
Oh, that's that he died in a car accident around the time of the election controversy.
Well, that's suspicious. But Tony7682 says, how about a long-form debate versus Steve Deace, Jesse Kelly, Kurt Schlichter? The long
Well,
format.
I mean, you had Jenna and Justin Hart on this past week.
Yeah,
so.
it's fine. I mean, we don't need a long format. We know where we disagree. Yeah. Like Justin Hart comes on and, they support them. That's fine. And they gloss over what they don't like and they focus on what they do like.
But what they don't understand is they're burning up their credibility.
That's the problem. I like DeSantis. His answer on the hurricane is beautiful. He's got to stop burning the freaking bridges. It's done. It's done. Move on, endorse, and unify. I got this something. So I'm going now bottom to top. Eric F., what do you gentlemen think of loser pays except versus the government as a way to tamp down lawfare?
I'm not for that because that will only deter the little guy. It won't deter powerful people from suing.
Yep.
It'll deter little people from suing.
And we got $5 from F Sterling 91. I don't know what it says. I know it's one of those match. Oh, it says, okay, select a square, select all squares with Fed. If there are none, please clip. It's funny. Okay. And we got a beautiful dog here. This is our Arena for Real, $5, just to get you sidetracked. Your dog sidetracks me because it looks like Barney, my beautiful French bulldog, who turned out to be a real piece of crap. To give him back to the goddamn... I blame me for it only. $50 from J.H. Schwalbach. Or that's J.H. Schwalbach. This show would be listed as porn in Texas. I can't stop watching, and at times I want to touch myself. No homo. Hail NFT and $1.99. And it's a baby holding a big ass. That looks like a Kobe, I think. That looks like a Kobe. Or cobia, not a Kobe. Rob Weenick, $5. Just wanted to give my appreciation for the most honest comedy show on the web. Much love to you both. Thank you very much. $5 from the Conroe 90. Do people realize that there were 1 or 2 permitted events at the Capitol on January 6th, and that is why Trump said he would go to the Capitol? Yes! Anybody watching this for any extended period of time, they had permits. Oh, okay. And then we got Viva. That's not what I look like. That's from Finboy Slick. What happens when Viva eats his field of greens? I had to learn AI just so I could give. Okay, dude, I'm saving that. Save image as me. Okay. And I got that. Do you think Michael Avenatti is curled up in the fetal position all the time or prison? Or do you think he's the type that drops the soap all the time? Are Avenatti and Michael Cohen holding each other in prison? We're going to get to that in a second. Dapper Dave, hold on. That was from Slim Shagan. Dapper Dave says, I've been seeing a whole bunch of Twitter postings by the radical left attacking Jared Kushner and his Arab dealings. I think this is a bigger plan of attack. It seems like they want to do Michael Flynn on Trump. Go after Jared and ultimately Ivanka. Might use this to try to force Trump out of threatening Ivanka. Rob, what do you think of that? That's an interesting theory.
Well, they were going after him, but they've decided not to do that now. Clearly, that the whole goal is the DC was to have enough cases, pick which one they think they can get a conviction of, get a conviction. They think that ends the story. That's their focus.
And we got Ginger Ninja, who made the chessboard. It says, for exclusive Viva Barnes firearms content, please follow Ginger Ninja, Scope and Scale video series, viewer-led content. It's amazing. Watch it. The chessboard's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, as far as chess paraphernalia goes. Eric F., $10. I love the t-shirt, but need a 3XL. We're working on sizing and women's stuff as well. Not to be ungrateful, but I would prefer a Wanted for President 16-ounce water bottle in addition to a mug. Don't be ungrateful. I'm going to screen grab that. I'm going to send it to the guy at the merch store. We'll see what he can do. Joseph, that was from SRE Dallas, 94. Joseph Augustus, $5. Just say it. Washington State Governor Inslee is asshole. But the new guy will be twice as worse. God bless Viva and Barnes. The Historic Life, $5. Robert, could you sue late night talk show hosts who gave medical advice for the show? Okay, we got this. If worked on, okay, we got that one. I think we got that one before. Now, do I have any more that I'm missing? A promise is a promise. Sorry, guys, hanging on the far end of a barbed wire dipped in tar for my internet connection out here in the cabin. What is the situation with Abe in Arizona? We got that, right, Robert?
Yeah, it's the courts playing games and not giving him the opportunity to appeal by not issuing it in the proper way.
Okay, now
which tells you that he's right, or they wouldn't be engaging in such shenanigans.
Frank Beans, $10. The struggle is what the struggle has been since Athens founded their republic. This is the struggle between those who believe in divine right, be that for wokeness, I'm screen grabbing this. This is beautiful. This is from Frank Beans. Be that for wokeness, demonic or heavenly blessings, education, genetics, etc., and those that believe all men are created equal in the eyes of God with a capital G, and thus no one has the right to tell everyone else what to do. That's beautiful. Geez, they're all coming in. Okay, Finboy Slick. Okay, we got future domain. The 14th Amendment stuff is unraveling. Unless the RNC boots him, they'll have to whack Trump to keep him from the presidency.
Yeah, which is what Tucker keeps talking about. But yeah, we got 7 quick little extra topics. So, and the ACLU has been suing using the Equal Rights Amendment under state law to say that the states have to fund abortion under its Medicaid procedures.
Because it's a medical procedure, Robert.
Because it's somehow discriminatory for the taxpayers to not pay for it. So this isn't about whether it's legal. They're saying that the ERA under state law requires the taxpayers to pay for abortion. And they've already got several lefty courts to go along with them, and now they're trying to do it in Nevada. And the Nevada, I forgot how broad it is, man. I first moved out here. This was not a crazy state. We now have an amendment that says you can't discriminate based on gender identity, or gender expression. And so what's the other interesting is they also said it disparately impacts minorities, which is interesting because they try to hide that in other stats. They admit that 2/3 of those seeking abortion in Nevada are from racial minority groups that represent only about 1/4 of the state. In other words, the ACLU wants to make sure that black and brown babies get killed before they become babies. There's one interpretation that some of us would have. But it's not been a lot of attention has been paid to this, because I find that what's interesting is 2 things. When the original federal U.S. Constitution ERA was being proposed, a bunch of lefties said, oh, this would never, ever be interpreted to require abortion. No, nothing to do with that. They were lying, as these cases now expose. The second is, I don't understand how you have your equal rights extends to the state having to pay for your abortion. So, but we'll see how these cases get litigated. They are usually choosing liberal courts to litigate them, and that's why they've gone under the radar. Some of these states, probably the pro-life movement, should put on the constitutional direct referendum. Do you support taxpayer funding of abortion? Because most people do not.
Okay.
But what's interesting is even in the pro-life community, there's been almost no talk of that issue. The Trusted News Initiative, that's Robert Kennedy Children's Health Defense, brought suit against the Washington Post, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the Associated Press, and Reuters, because they formed the so-called Trusted News Initiative to conspire with big tech to gatekeep out misinformation, which basically was information from their competitors. They brought it as an antitrust act. Jed Rubenfeld and others, Yale law professor, etc., that this violates First Amendment rights, but in this context, it's conspiring to shrink the marketplace. Jim Hoft of Gateway Pundit and others joined the case. I think maybe Robert Malone joined it as well. Well, now the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana filed a amicus brief in support of the case, which was very helpful and very useful to see. He is probably going to be the future governor of the state of Louisiana because he knows how to play the political cards right in the legal context. But so it'll be that's a case to continue to watch, because if the antitrust laws are robustly interpreted to limit this censorship campaign, that will have its own success in limiting the censorship campaign.
Okay.
The FDA tried to ban unflavored vapes.
So unflavored, not flavored vapes.
Well, both. But one got upheld, one didn't.
Yeah, I presume the flavored vapes got upheld because it targets children and racial minorities, if we're going to go by the menthol cigarette decision, and the unflavored, no.
Exactly. But what was interesting was the court said agencies have a duty. It's arbitrary and capricious for an agency to not do a holistic public health analysis. And that requires that an agency cannot either approve or deny the marketing of any medical device or drug unless they have looked at both the risks and the rewards, the benefits and the drawbacks, and all the trade-offs. And so they said when evaluating unflavored vapes, FDA didn't even try. And that has relevance to that if we were ever able by the courts to go forward with the suit against the FDA on behalf of Children's Health Defense on the COVID vaccine, they didn't do that at all in the COVID vaccine context. They didn't even try.
You want to talk about institutionalized racism? It's banning menthol cigarettes because it's the cigarettes chosen by minorities, blacks.
But let's make sure we can fund your kid's abortion and let's stick a needle in your arm.
No, but Robert, that would be crazy. That would be a crazy thing to put together, that they want to deny what they choose to do and then promote what would end their demographics, or at least limit their demographics. It's
Speaking like crazy things in certain demographics, it turns out the WAP lyrics, and that doesn't refer to Italians.
I'll say wet ass punani. That's what I had no idea. I had no idea, Robert, until I looked it up.
Well, yeah. What's amazing is it turns out somebody else wrote that song first. So they sued saying you stole my song. And the court said that apparently that phraseology is so common, it can't even be copyrighted. And I was like, I didn't even know it was.
I know, but I get accused of being like the pro porno dude. I have I thought WAP. I thought what was controversial about it was without papers. That's what I thought the WAP was, not the wet ass punani, which is. So they said it's such a common phrase it cannot be even protected via intellectual property.
It couldn't be part of a copyrightable song. So if you're going to steal a copyright out there, everybody, make sure it's a supposedly common term. Even when it's so crude, it's hard to imagine it quite as common. But that's where federal courts are these days. Apparently, they listen to different music than the rest of us. The Giuliani got defaulted on
this. This is bullshit, Robert. I heard the story. I have the link. I shut the link down. He got defaulted for alleged failure to comply with discovery. This is not like defaulted like he didn't appear and he didn't. So what are the details?
Once again, he turned over, it looks like, tons of documents and information. This is the same corrupt chief judge that has been coordinating the campaign to get Donald Trump indicted in D.C. Same corrupt chief judge. And so that's the one presiding over Giuliani's proceeding. Now, you might ask yourself, how is a suit by Georgia plaintiffs being brought against a New York defendant in D.C.? That right away, that might be some clues that shows you how abusive these judges are with venue. That cases that have no business in their court or are biased in their court, they won't move out. But cases that are brought in from way outside, they're eager to accept. But in looking at it, it's clear. I mean, Giuliani has limited resources. And so he said, look, I can only get so much information. Much of what is being sought has no relevance at all. It's just like the Alex Jones cases. I kept telling people that this was, and Rudy and other people, quite frankly, didn't say a lot for Alex Jones. And now the Alex Jones principles are getting used against them. And I try to tell people that's what was coming. And so, like here, for example, most of the discovery didn't relate to whether he believed the statements or not. All the discovery related to how much money he was making on something else. And it's like, what does that have to do with it? It's irrelevant to the question of malice in the defamation context. So, I mean, malice is not about whether you have good intentions or not. Malice is whether you know something is false or not. Quite frankly, it was poor phraseology by the Supreme Court. What they meant by actual malice was disregard of the truth of the statement, not I hate the person. But courts commonly abuse that to allow a fishing expedition to Rudy Giuliani's finances. And when he doesn't comply with any aspect, default, you're not allowed to defend yourself on the merits, which, by the way, is done by this judge because a D.C. jury would have lynched Rudy anyway. Now he's got an easy appellate issue. So that's where that's going to go.
Robert, there's a funny one in the chat here. I'll get to it in a second. Tim Good, or Tim_Goods, $5 says, the education and information you from you two is priceless. Thank you. This is a $1 tip. I'm going to make an exception. It says, please clip David saying wet ass punani. That might be the funniest thing I've heard him say. We got, did the feds use this affirmative rights idea to buy the Uvalde shooter his $10,000 worth of firearms and gear from Ginger Ninja? Robert, do we have any news on that? I remember reading that at the time that this kid was...
I don't know the details about that.
Okay. And then we got some great memes, which look like AI generated. Me with Barney. I love that dog. The 14th Amendment stuff is unraveling. Okay, we got that. The struggle. Okay, we got that. We got Robert. I think we're good.
Yeah,
Right?
just got two more.
Do it. Okay, go. Hold on.
Avenatti lost his appeal of the Nike case. How not to commit extortion by Michael Avenatti.
That goes so far back in the Viva. I was in my car talking about that one. That was Avenatti saying, "Hey, Nike, pay up or we're gonna tank your fucking stock on the eve of your quarterly earnings." And like, yeah, no, you're going to jail. So he's in jail. And Robert, what happened?
So the key is, some people were worried that the case could be misused. The court did a good job of clarifying that when you are asserting something as a claim of right, that can't be called extortion. So you're saying if you don't settle X amount, I'm going to sue you for X amount. That's never extortion. What's extortion is when you claim something that has no nexus to a claim of right, which is what Avenatti did. Avenatti said, "Hey, you can pay off my client for $1 million, but me, you got to pay $25 million."
For consulting, Robert, he'll come in and consult as to how they can work.
So he tried to claim he was just doing legal advocacy in the extortion. They're like, "No, you didn't. You were screwing your own client to line your pocket." And the other one was, he said his bribery wasn't bribery because he offered inaction, not action. He promised not to do something in exchange for the bribe.
Of course, I will not talk. I will not say something. Oh my God. Oh,
so by the way,
help.
A lot of what he's accused of is convicted of is analogous to what a certain Mark Randazza has been accused of in other contexts. Just a little FYI. Randazza might read that opinion and sweat a little bit. But that's another story for another day.
Robert, I'm going to defend you against claims of anti-Semitism or claims of being Jewish now. Michael Avenatti is Jewish, by the way, just so everybody knows. Robert Barnes, the Zionist Jewish character, has just criticized...
According to Elijah J. Schaefer, he thanked me for being a good Jew.
It's Jew by association, Robert. I was going to ask if you're circumcised. I don't even want to know anymore. I've never... So, no, the whole point... Oh, I crossed the line with that joke. Avenatti... is a
Here's the great meme from the Nick Fuentes debate of me looking like an Orthodox Jew.
It's the best thing ever. Yeah. But I can't share those things.
And Nick Fuentes looking like an Arab terrorist.
Okay.
So there's two more cases left. Secret Service bribery. I
know these. I don't remember the details yet.
This is Girardi, the corrupt lawyer the California bar defended.
So I had to Google this because I didn't know who his wife was. I didn't know why he wasn't named as a defendant, but he seems to be suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's or something. His wife...
Well, you're about to put him on trial. So he's like, for criminal to go to prison. He's like, I'm pretty sure I've lost my mind.
Well, in fairness, I saw what the sex guy looks like. What's his name? The hedgehog. The Jewish porno guy. Robert...
Neither one of those images.
No. Oh God! When you
hedgehog and Jewish porn guy, I don't know.
Ron Jeremy. So Ron
Jeremy. I met him once. That dude was a freak, total freak.
No. I would say no shit. I've never met him, but
I didn't meet him. I met him at a bar. It was a big get together for some people, and they're like, "Hey, Ron Jeremy's coming." I was like, "Okay." God, that dude is weird.
I think Ron Jeremy might be the only guy who I'm taller than, but no, he was standing trial and he was diagnosed as demented. But the photos, he looks demented. Okay, so sorry.
Yeah, when I met him, he was clearly gone.
Now I forget what the tie-in was here. It was Girardi. Tell us what's going on here.
Basically, Girardi, he was close buddy. This is how corrupt the whole system is. Was good buddies with the head of Secret Service in L.A. So he had some people exposing his fraud. He goes to his buddy, says, "I'm going to accuse this guy of credit card fraud and a bunch of other stuff. You agree to investigate, try to indict him and back him off, and I'll agree to represent you for free in a bunch of different cases." So it was a creative bribe. Anybody that knows L.A. law enforcement, federal or state, riddled with corruption. Just top to bottom, left to right. It's not just the police, it's the feds, it's everybody. Especially, it's true nationally, but it's really true in LA. The degree of, the stories some of those ex-feds used to tell me in LA was unbelievable. So, but it's a case. It's interesting because it involves Tom Girardi and the rest. Somehow the media is not really covering this case. They're covering all kinds of aspects of Tom Girardi, his wife Erica Girardi, the divorce, the lawsuits. The Secret Service bribery somehow missed the LA Times headlines.
What was crazy about that I remember reading that lawsuit now. I had no idea who Girardi was, his wife. Real Housewives? Was she Real Housewives? Or was
Something
was
like that. Yeah, she was like, she screamed, trophy wife, don't get divorced, you're screwed.
And she accused or they got the Secret Service Amex in to like criminally prosecute a guy for fraud because he was charging her for the designs that she was wearing during her shows for $900,000 over 2 years. And then they said it was unapproved charges, and they got the Secret Service Amex to prosecute him criminally. They dropped the charges subsequently, the criminal charges. Amex alleged to have conspired with the prosecution, or at least the
Yes.
improper.
I mean, Girardi is really a window into how the whole system works.
It's an example of like it sometimes feels like the fewer friends you have, the better off you're going to be.
Well, and the same state bar that for years hid Girardi's crimes is the one trying to disbar Professor Eastman for exposing election fraud.
All right, now go for that one, Robert, because I'm gonna look through the chat here.
There's not much update on the Eastman one. As that case progresses, we'll discuss it on the Sunday show. But the last one left is Tyson Foods.
Okay, I have no idea what's going on. I just know that you don't like them. Rightly so, Robert. What's the deal with Tyson Foods?
Big ruling by the federal court in a sequence of cases. And now we wrapped up discovery and depositions with Tyson Foods this past week. And Tennessee passed a state law. It went into effect November 14th, 2021. They passed the law because of the Tyson Foods case. That we and a bunch of people made sure that the whole state, everywhere, that this was a serious problem what Tyson Foods was doing. And what Tyson Foods did to most of the employees is they didn't fire them. They put them on unpaid leave, to pretend they didn't fire them.
Yeah, unpaid leave for what now? Going on 2 years. So
Yeah.
enjoy unpaid leave.
For a year. And what they try to do is they try to back out of it a year later by saying they offered everybody their jobs back. By the way, here's how they did this. They sent letters to all of my clients without even copying me on them. And several of the letters never even reached my clients because it looks like Tyson deliberately sent it in some cases to addresses they knew were not even mailing addresses, but made it look like it that way to its supervisors. And so that's the kind of shenanigans Tyson Foods has been up to throughout the entire case. But here's the problem for Tyson Foods. Our suit led to other suits being brought, led to the legislation being passed. The federal court said Tyson Foods' whole argument. So here's what the Tennessee state law passed. It said if an employee objects to the COVID vaccine, an employer who requires proof of it cannot take any adverse action against an employee if the employee refuses to provide that proof. And that's it. And you can object for any reason at all. Doesn't matter what your reason is. And if you take an adverse action, you're responsible for all damages, all compensatory damages and mandatory attorney's fees, by the way. What's significant is you don't have to prove it was a religious reason or a medical reason. And very big significance in the Tennessee law, there's no undue burden defense. There's no reasonable accommodation defense. You don't get to argue if you're Tyson, well, it was unreasonable to burden us with this. Doesn't matter, not a defense. You can't say, well, it was a reasonable accommodation we made, the unpaid leave. Doesn't matter, not a defense. You have no defenses if you're Tyson. You have to prove the person didn't object, or you didn't require proof, or you didn't take adverse action against them, or if you did, it has nothing to do with the prior threat. The problem is it's now been clear from all the discovery, there's no dispute in the facts, Tyson Foods took an adverse action based on the person asserting an objection and refusing to produce proof of the vaccine. The federal judge ruled, Tyson's defense was, well, we did it before the law came in. We got it in there before. And the judge is like, if you fired him, sure, but you didn't. You put him on unpaid leave. That's a continuous violation. You knew the law said you had to reemploy him, and you still refused to do it. So said, you're liable, period. Well, we already won all the liability grounds. We're going to be going to trial solely on damages, and they're going to just be writing checks left and right. So they are dead to rights. They are finished. They are done on these Tennessee cases. And I'm going to make sure everybody else knows out there in future broadcasts that what their rights are, and that anybody else that was hurt in this way in Tennessee by any employer has a right to sue. And because of what we've established, Tyson has no defenses. Their only defense is going to be our damages. Maybe you got a job that's okay, so let's keep the compensatory damages down, things like that. Okay, fine. But all of my clients wanted to make the point of the precedent. But we're going to win the precedent. They violated state law, period. End of story, finished, done. And they're going to be writing checks to my law firm all the way through. And all of this could have been avoided had they had the honesty to simply hold that Tennessee state court hearing that they implied to me that they were providing for when they were actually delaying proceedings to drag it into federal court. And now they went down to federal court, and it's that federal judge that says, nah, you were doing wrong all along, Tyson. So it didn't work out. Turns out crooks sometimes get their own payday.
Never forgive, never forget, hold the line. That, I believe, is also on VivaFry.com merch. Robert, Debbie_O says, Viva, are you aware that you skipped over some $5 questions? The chat is rightly going nuts. I am not. I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm going to read whatever I think I might have missed. Okay, I'm going to go back up. Did the feds use the affirmative rights idea to buy? Okay, we got the Uvalde. That was fair. Okay, I'm scrolling up now. The 14th Amendment stuff is unraveling. We got that one. That was from Future Domain. Frank Beans. The struggle is the struggle since Athens. We got that one. I'm going up. Mighty Piss. So if Robert is a private employer, so is Robert saying a private employer can fire an employee for stuff against facts? We got that one too. Mandalici. Gateway Pundit published, and there are links on the Georgia DA corruption. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, Gateway Pundit. Yep.
On Act Blue. Screen grab that.
That's thanks to James O'Keefe and Project Veritas who started all that.
Yeah, I gotta go see. Okay, so we got this one.
Started the popularization of it. There were some other good investigative groups that unearthed it, but until O'Keefe put it on blast, not enough people were paying attention to it.
Now I'm going.
For those that don't know what that is, the Act Blue basically exposes that a bunch of donations to Democrats were not coming from the people they said it was. In some cases, they were using somebody else's identity to launder donations in excess of the contribution limit.
Okay, we got. I think I got the rest. I love the T-shirt, but it needs a 3XL. Okay. Just say Washington State. Okay, this is just say it. Washington State Governor Inslee is a-hole. No, we got that one too. Historic life. Robert, could you, a late night talk show host, suing the late night talk shows? We got that.
I think we got all these.
I think I think we're good. And if I missed any,
and what is it? I mean, some of the questions were multiple that we had answered before, so that some people may have got confused about that.
Robert, what's your schedule for the next week? Or as I like to say, week.
Oh, it's Labor Day tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I have anything set for this week. There's a bunch of preparing for. So people had asked about bank cases, about debanking in response to the poll thread this week. I mean, I've talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. I have one of the lead cases in the country on that. Michael Qualiza against U.S. Bank, which is about the efforts to debank him and bankrupt him because they didn't like his politics. So there's other cases like that are out there, but that's one of the biggest cases. But as that case has momentous moments, we'll discuss it on the show.
All right, fantastic, Robert. For me, what's going to be? It's going to be another week. We got some guests lined up. Some guests in the works. So live during the day, it'll be good. Bourbon with Barnes, Monday, Tuesday. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Okay, good. Everybody?
Well, yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, bourbon. Friday is book club. Saturday, we usually watch a movie and have an open live chat.
I forget. What was the winner for yesterday? The movie.
Say it again?
What was the winning movie?
The movie last week was The Breakfast Club. We'll see what maybe Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Reality Bites or Clerks, whichever one the board votes for on Friday is what we'll do on Saturday.
Throw out Pump Up the Volume. I think Pump Up the Volume might be more applicable today than
yeah.
ever before. Robert, everybody out there, thank you very much. Stay tuned. We'll be live tomorrow. Robert, stick around. We'll say our proper goodbyes. And everyone else, peace out, peeps. Amazing.